Chapter 240. Striking God. As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, a gentian pearl emitting a five-colored radiance rushed towards Taoist Jin Li, armor transformation. With a stern shout, Taoist Master Jin Li's golden protective stellar energy suddenly withdrew and fused with a top-grade magic tool, transforming into a suit of crimson armor that Taoist Master Jin Li wore. A scarlet cloak fluttered behind Taoist Master Jin Li's back. When the gentian pearl struck the armor, Taoist Jin Li was forced to take a step back. Immediately afterwards, two more gentian pearls suddenly appeared by his side and shot towards his body. Taoist Jin Li remained fearless. He directed his flying sword to stab out 9 beams of sword qi from 9 different directions towards Lu Ping. The 9 beams of sword qi seemed to have calculated every possible way that Lu Ping could dodge them. Besides receiving them head-on, Lu Ping had no other options. Lu Ping's face sank. The azure sword once again transformed into a weary sword flood dragon as it charged towards the sword qi. The sound of metal colliding was like the azure sword's final roar. The 2 beams of sword qi were extinguished, and the azure sword let out a mournful wail as its blade suddenly shattered into hundreds of tiny fragments that fell towards the sea. The azure sword was the magic tool that Lu Ping used the most. Lu Ping stretched out his hand, and with a suction force, the shattered fragments of the azure sword once again shot towards another beam of sword qi. The 3rd beam of sword qi was destroyed, and the fragments of the azure sword turned into iron powder. Lu Ping once again raised his medicinal pestle and smashed 4 beams of sword qi. The remaining 2 beams of sword qi were blocked by the cloudy sky and meteorite vital poison shield. The stellar energy protecting Lu Ping's body was once again broken, and the cloudy sky had already turned into a gloomy white cloud, as if it would evaporate under the scorching sun at any moment. The last halo on Lu Ping's body shattered. Lu Ping's face paled. Fortunately, he was wearing a red mask, so it wasn't too obvious. A crisp cracking sound rang out again, and the jade talisman in Lu Ping's hand turned into dust, leaking through the gaps between Lu Ping's fingers. The last 3 halos rose up from Lu Ping's hand and wrapped around his body one by one. At this moment, Taoist Master Jin Li had just blocked the attack of the 3 gentian pearls. Cracks began to appear on his red armor. Taoist Master Jin Li's deathly pale face suddenly turned blood red, and he finally spat out a mouthful of blood. Old wounds had not yet healed, but new ones had appeared. The gentian pearls continued to fall one after the other. This time, the remaining 6 pearls all shot towards Taoist Master Jin Li. The ghostly spiritual pearls drew an unfathomable trajectory in the air, making it impossible for Taoist Master Jin Li to determine where the gentian pearls were headed. What kind of array is this? It's actually able to control 12 top-grade magic tools to form such a strange and unfathomable array. How much magic power would be required to operate this array? Even a cultivator who had just entered the core forging stage would not be able to control such a tyrannical magic tool for a long period of time. For the first time, Taoist Master Jin Li's confidence in his ability to kill this human minor repairs was shaken. How could this be? This was absolutely impossible. Taoist Master Jin Li's malevolent face revealed a trace of disbelief, as well as a trace of flustered and exasperated anger. A cracking sound came from Taoist Master Jin Li's palm. Wisps of gray qi floated up from his palm, forming the outline of an enormous crocodile in the sky. The primordial crocodile. This monstrous beast was so large that its mouth alone took up a third of its body's length. It raised its head to the sky and let out a soundless roar. Its sharp teeth glinted with a cold light as it opened its mouth, and an imposing aura that disdained the world rushed towards Lu Ping. 6 gentian pearls flew towards Lu Ping, but the giant crocodile used an agility that was not commensurate with its enormous body to bite down on 2 of the pearls. Fragments of spiritual light shot out, and Lu Ping's heart suddenly felt a sharp pain. This pain was caused by the damage that the gentian pearls had received. 2 gentian pearls struck the giant crocodile's eyeballs, causing it to feel a wave of pain. It couldn't help but open its mouth, and 2 dimmed gentian pearls flew out. The other 10 gentian pearls shone with a dazzling 5-colored light, and the 2 damaged pearls slowly regained their dazzling luster. Another 2 pearls flew towards Lu Ping. The primordial giant crocodile swung its body to the side, and its massive tail whipped the 2 pearls away. Lu Ping couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Taoist Master Jin Li smiled sinisterly and directed the giant crocodile to charge towards Lu Ping. Ever since Taoist Master Jin Li had advanced to the core forging realm, it had been many years since he had used a treasure talisman. This treasure talisman had originally been given to him by his adoptive father, the Golden Flood Dragon Island Master, when he was still a blood condensation cultivator. In the past several hundred years, Taoist Master Jin Li had only used it twice before he had advanced to the core forging realm, and both times were when his life was at stake. Taoist Master Jin Li had originally planned to keep this treasure talisman as a souvenir, but he hadn't expected that he would have no choice but to use it to defend against a blood condensation miner repairs cultivator's attack. How could this not cause Taoist Master Jin Li to feel ashamed and angry? The primordial giant crocodile bared its fangs and brandished its claws, charging towards Lu Ping in an insufferably arrogant manner. However, it saw Lu Ping toss out another pearl. Amidst the shrill cries of swords that filled the sky, 36 sword lights containing over 1,000 spiritual sword lights fused together to form an enormous sword array. An ancient and mysterious gate suddenly opened in the sky, and a white curtain of silver poured down, as if the Milky Way from the 9 heavens had fallen to the ground. This was a true sword array. Previously, when Lu Ping had used his few dozen spiritual sword lights to set up a formation, it could be considered a formation. But in front of this sword divine ability that seemed to have opened the gates of heaven, it was like trying to draw a tiger but failing to achieve anything. Silver waves poured down, as if carrying with them the power of heaven and earth, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Every drop of water was a spiritual sword light, and every spray was a spiritual sword formation. In the face of this might of heaven and earth, Lu Ping's only fate was to be annihilated. Taoist Master Jin Li opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. To Taoist Master Jin Li, using this kind of divine swordsmanship that he had yet to fully grasp was an unbearable burden. The heavenly gate, which was formed from 36 sword arrays, was already tottering and on the verge of collapse. However, he didn't seem to care. Taoist Master Jin Li was a sword cultivator who had been obsessed with swords his entire life. At this moment, he was also obsessed with the sword divine ability that he was using. He had even forgotten that the original purpose of using this sword divine ability was to destroy the insignificant hemolytic miner repairs. 12 massive spirit pearls surrounded Lu Ping, like an isolated island in the middle of the overflowing Milky Way. However, Lu Ping was determined to use this isolated island to seal the open celestial gate. Calm the sea. The 12 gentian pearls slowly revolved around Lu Ping. With Lu Ping as the center, the Milky Way suddenly calmed down. Then, this calmness spread out in all directions. The sword pearls, sword waves, and sword formations contained within the turbulent waves suddenly became docile little sheep, obediently subdued by Lu Ping's natal array. Engulfing the world, Taoist Master Jin Li roared. The enormous heavenly gate of the sword array trembled, and an even more turbulent wave of swords poured down in torrents. Taoist Master Jin Li's voice carried a trace of panic. Maintaining this massive divine ability had finally exceeded his limits. The sword divine ability is truly boundless, but you've barely managed to use it. How much of its power can you display? Lu Ping finally realized something. The flood of sword lights that gushed out from the massive Heavenly Gate sword array was less than a fifth of the Heavenly Gate. Moreover, the edges of the Heavenly Gate were trembling. This was a sign that Taoist Master Jin Li's true essence had been exhausted, and he was no longer able to maintain the Heavenly Gate sword array. Taoist Master Jin Li absolutely could not imagine that the range of Lu Ping's divine sense was no less than his own. Although Lu Ping's divine sense could not accurately capture Taoist Master Jin Li's state like divine sense, just this much was enough. At this time, Taoist Master Jin Li couldn't even muster a single sarcastic retort. His deathly pale face suddenly turned blood red, and then turned purple gold. His eyes glared at Lu Ping, as if he wanted to skin him alive. Strike God! Lu Ping saw through Taoist Master Jin Li's weakness and finally decided to forcefully resist the Heavenly Gate Sword Array. Chapter 241. Heavenly River Reverse. Taoist Master Jin Li's expression changed when he saw Lu Ping begin to attack the Heavenly Gate Sword Array. He immediately reversed the waterfall of sword lights and blocked the Gentian Pearl's counterattack. However, 6 of the 12 Gentian Pearls suddenly split off and occupied 6 different positions. They forcibly opened up a path in front of the waterfall of sword lights and blocked the sword waves from all directions. The remaining 6 primary Chen beads flew through this passageway and collided with the Heavenly Gate's sword formation. The 6 sword formations collapsed, and the entire Heavenly Gates instantly lost its topmost pillar. The heavenly river that had surged up seemed to have lost the power to support it and once again fell down from the sky. Taoist Master Jin Li finally began to panic. He did his utmost to maintain the broken Heavenly Gate Sword Array in an attempt to completely suppress Lu Ping's Gentian Pearls. Lu Ping watched as the Heavenly Gate Sword Array suddenly split off into 12 sword waves that chased after the Gentian Pearls. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The 12 Gentian Pearls glowed with a 5-colored brilliance and formed a world of spiritual light in the sky. The 12 sword waves were suddenly pulled in by countless forces from all directions. They immediately collided and intertwined in the sky, creating a chaotic mess. Mountain suppression. Although Lu Ping had the support of 3 transformation spirit pills, activating the natal Gentian sword array consumed far too much transcendence energy. Lu Ping had to end this battle as soon as possible. The origin time beads 5-colored light shone together, surrounding the Heavenly Gate's sword formation. The 5-colored light shone as though it was being suppressed by an absolute power. The sword formations started to disintegrate one after another, and the entire Heavenly Gates started to gradually disappear from the gate beam. Taoist Master Jin Li could no longer maintain the operation of the Heavenly Gate Sword Array. Blood flowed from his mouth and nose, and he looked like a ferocious ghost. He roared, "Impossible! How could you break through my divine swordsmanship? You can! You can!" Amidst a loud explosion, landslide fell from the sky. Taoist Master Jin Li howled madly, and a 7-colored mist of light soared into the sky, transforming into a rainbow bridge that firmly blocked landslide in midair. Taoist Master Jin Li leapt into the sea of sword light. When he emerged from the water, he was already a golden carp about 10 feet long. He swung his tail and swam swiftly towards the collapsing Heavenly Gate. Although Lu Ping didn't know what Taoist Master Jin Li wanted to do, he naturally wouldn't allow him to easily reach the Heavenly Gate Sword Array. Muttering an incantation, Lu Ping raised his medicine pestle for the 2nd time and struck it towards Taoist Master Jin Li. The layer of golden scales on the surface of the golden carp instantly shattered, and 2 clouds of golden mist emerged from the carp's body, forming a golden ball of light in the air. The ball of light then transformed into a golden shield again, clashing with the oncoming jade pestle. The golden scales were the same as the red armor that Taoist Master Jin Li had previously been wearing, and the 2 clouds of golden mist were obviously Taoist Master Jin Li's fused protective aura. The medicine pestle once again returned without success, but the surface of the golden carp was now drenched in blood. Still, it didn't slow down and continued to swim towards the Heavenly Gate. Taoist Master Jin Li saw that the Heavenly Gate was right in front of him and that his escape was in sight. He turned around and shouted, "Brat, the next time we meet, this Taoist will definitely kill you." Fish leaping through the Heavenly Gate, true spirit escape. A massive golden carp leapt out of the sea of sword light, its entire body covered in blood, and threw itself towards the Heavenly Gate. "You won't have the chance." A golden ray of light suddenly shone on the giant carp's body. Taoist Master Jin Li, who had been leaping into the air, suddenly paused for a moment. At this moment, the 12 multicolored lights twinkling in the sky suddenly increased in intensity once more. The colorless lights seemed to have substance, weaving together to form a multicolored world in the sky. The Heavenly Gate sword formation that had been enveloped by the multicolored world finally couldn't hold on any longer, and the remaining 20 sword formations simultaneously collapsed. Without the support of the Heavenly Gate, the sea of sword light could no longer flow, and the only thing left in the sky was a golden flying sword that had been suppressed by the gentian pearl. This was Taoist Master Jin Li's life treasure. Taoist Master Jin Li saw that his life treasure had been suppressed, and that his true essence had been exhausted. With no hope of escape, he glared venomously at Lu Ping with his fish eyes, and suddenly charged towards him in a frenzy. A multicolored light flashed in the sky, and the giant fish suddenly felt its entire body being pulled in all directions by dozens of powerful forces. It immediately came to a standstill in the sea, and its venomous eyes were finally overwhelmed by endless fear. The giant fish's head burst open, and a pearl that didn't carry a single trace of blood and emitted a multicolored light suddenly emerged from the broken fish head. Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief, and his taut divine sense finally relaxed. Endless exhaustion immediately overtook his body. He had actually killed a core forging enlightened master. Although Taoist Master Jin Li had been hunted down and was seriously injured, and many of his magic tools and treasures had been destroyed in the course of the battle, he was still a second-layer core forging enlightened master. Now wasn't the time to relax. The intensity of the battle had most likely attracted the attention of the nearby cultivators, and sooner or later, the core forging enlightened masters would come to investigate. The flying sword that had been suppressed by the 12 gentian pearls was still fiercely struggling, trying to break free of the gentian pearls' control and fly away. Lu Ping looked thoughtfully at Taoist Master Jin Li's true form. Lu Ping took out an interspatial pouch and was about to place the huge carp into it when its body suddenly exploded. A dazzling golden pellet flew out from its body, drawing the spiritual energy from the surroundings and flew away. At the same time, the suppressed golden flying sword became even more agitated. Lu Ping took out an interspatial pouch and was about to place the carp inside. Golden core. I knew you had this kind of trick up your sleeve. Lu Ping sneered, and the copper mirror in his hand shot out a golden light at the golden core. The golden core trembled violently, but it was unable to fly away. At some point, the gentian formation above Lu Ping's head exploded with multicolored light once again. The golden core was completely suppressed. Lu Ping's divine sense wildly surged into the golden core. The small ball of divine sense that had lost its physical body was finally annihilated by Lu Ping's enormous divine sense. The golden core no longer trembled, allowing Lu Ping to seal it with a jade essence bottle and place it inside Lu Ping's storage ring. What great luck! Lu Ping hadn't expected that he would actually obtain a core forging enlightened master's golden core. This was even more important than the flying sword that was being suppressed by the gentian formation. After losing the connection to Taoist Master Jin Li's divine sense, the golden flying sword finally stopped struggling. However, Lu Ping still didn't let down his guard. Magic treasures had spirits, and when their masters died, they would usually choose to escape on their own. Lu Ping directly entered the gentian formation and grabbed the flying sword in his hand. After using his own transcendence energy to suppress it, he placed it inside his storage ring. Now was not the time to refine it. Lu Ping casually glanced in a certain direction behind him. The magic cloud beneath his feet lifted him up, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the dark night sky. Chapter 242. The darkness of the night was like a ferocious beast that could devour everything. It lay there quietly, waiting for the arrival of its prey. The surface of the sea had already calmed down. The rippling seawater had already wiped away all traces of the battle. It was impossible to imagine that a blood condensation realm cultivator had once killed a core forging enlightened master. 6 beams of light suddenly lit up on the surface of the sea. In the moaning sound of the tide, they looked like 6 dancing fireflies. The 6 rays of light landed on the surface of the sea, revealing 6 late blood condensation cultivators. The leader was at the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm, while the other 5 were at the 7th layer. Big brother, I can't imagine how a blood condensation cultivator could defeat a core forging enlightened master. That's right. I'm afraid that person was just hiding his cultivation. After all, a core forging enlightened master isn't something we can guess. There's no mistake. Cultivation can be hidden, but the aura of magic energy can't be hidden. That person didn't use quintessential essence, but magic energy. Moreover, he didn't even use his divine sense. The way I see it, the 12 five-colored lights are the most powerful. They are clearly just top-grade magic artifacts, but they are actually able to fight against magic treasures. The door that appeared in the sky in the end must be a legendary Dao technique, but it was actually destroyed by the 12 five-colored lights. That's right, Big Brother. What do you think? The last cultivator finally asked the leader of the group. The leader of the group had been frowning all this time. He looked around in bewilderment, as if he didn't hear the question from the cultivators behind him. The cultivators behind him finally noticed that something was wrong with the leader. One of them asked cautiously, "Big Brother, something's wrong." The leader of the group interrupted his brother in panic. He took out 2 water splitters and shouted, "Run!" When the 5 cultivators behind him heard this, they all became alert. Each of them wielded their magic tools in the air. Suddenly, 12 five-colored lights lit up around them, and a faint voice came from above them. "At least you have some vigilance, but it's too late." A moment later, the 12 lights flashed, and only the 6 cultivators were left on the surface of the sea. One of them asked the leader of the group, "Big Brother?" "Then we." The leading cultivator's expression was calm. He turned around and flew away, leaving behind only 2 words, "Return to the island." After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, 2 streaks of light suddenly flashed on the surface of the sea, revealing a black-robed cultivator in his 30s and an old man in a silver robe. If Lu Ping were here, he would definitely recognize that the cultivator in black was immortal Wang Hua, who had mistaken him for a cultivator of the Crystal Palace, and the old man must be immortal Kunshan, the alchemy master of the Crystal Palace. At this moment, Kuan Shan Zhenren's face was very ugly. When he came to the fallen mystery land, he saw the message left by his disciple about the discovery of the Land of 100 Flowers. The people of Kuan Shan Town naturally knew what the Land of 100 Flowers meant, so they immediately rushed to the nameless island without stopping. However, they were still one step too late. After joining hands with immortal Wang Hua to injure and expel immortal Jinli, the 2 of them discovered Wang Yishan and the others in the Land of 100 Flowers. When the people of Kuan Shan Town saw the 2 huge pits in the Land of 100 Flowers, they immediately realized that the King of 100 Flowers had been taken by someone else, so they fiercely scolded Senior Marshal Brother Qi. Senior Marshal Brother Qi felt wronged, and at the same time, he was extremely vexed. How could he have known that the Land of 100 Flowers had a King of 100 Flowers? Of course, if the people of Kuan Shan Town knew that the King of 100 Flowers that Lu Ping had obtained was a 9th-grade white jade lotus and a peach tree demon that had condensed psychic wood, they probably wouldn't just be remorseful. In any case, the Land of 100 Flowers was still a treasure trove. The 100 Flowers Fiendish had survived 2 large-scale raids by Lu Ping and Senior Marshal Brother Qi. However, natural oddities were rare. Even though the 100 Flowers Fiendish had become extremely sparse, there were still many cultivators who were willing to use it to condense and strengthen their protective stellar energy. The cultivators of the 2 sects naturally sealed this treasure trove for future use. It seems like we're a step too late. Jinli has already escaped. However, the aura here is really strange. It seems like Jinli fought a blood condensation realm cultivator, Immortal Wang Hua said uncertainly. That's right. It's indeed strange. With Jinli's abilities, even after using the blood escape technique, he shouldn't have been able to fight with a blood condensation realm cultivator for so long. Moreover, from the aura left behind in this place, it seems like Jinli used his full strength. The silver-robed old man from the Crystal Palace, Immortal Kuan Shan's divine sense, was clearly above Immortal Wang Hua's. He could sense more things. In any case, this person shouldn't appear in the territory of our 3 sects alliance. What's more important now is to hide our plan from the Zhang and Li families, especially the Northern Cultivator Alliance behind the Zhang family. This time, Jinli almost discovered the teleportation array. Fortunately, the old man arrived in time. We must also seal the news about the Land of 100 Flowers. Although the 100 Flowers Fiendish there is much sparse, it can still be used to reward ordinary disciples. It should be enough for 7 or 8 people to condense their stellar energy. My Crystal Palace will split the 100 Flowers Fiendish Qi with your Wang family. Your Wang family will send 4 disciples here to condense their stellar energy. As he spoke, immortal Kuan Shan had already regarded the land of 100 flowers on the nameless island as the Crystal Palace's possession. This was a good place. As long as the flowers did not disappear, the stellar energy would remain forever. After accumulating for decades, it could be used by the disciples to condense their stellar energy. After a few hundred years, even the Flower King would be born. Moreover, there were many 500-year-old or even 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs in the land of 100 flowers. Immortal Wang Hua was startled when he heard this. When he saw that the people of Kuan Shan Town were looking at him with bright eyes, he said, "Okay." Lu Ping rushed back to Hearing Waves Island overnight. He summoned Hong Ying and gave him some instructions. Hong Ying's face was filled with shock and admiration. Then, he hurriedly summoned his 4 Vajra subordinates and ordered Wu Yin to guard the island. They left Hearing Waves Island overnight. Lu Ping sat cross-legged on top of the miniature spiritual vein in the middle of his immortal's cave. When he finally calmed his mind, his complexion suddenly changed and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This battle with immortal Jin Li could be said to have been a narrow escape from death. If not for the strength of Lu Ping's great Jinshin formation, which was able to contend against immortal Jin Li's inherited magical ability, Lu Ping would have long since died under the Heavenly Gate Sword formation. Of course, the main reason was that immortal Jin Li had been seriously injured and could not use 30 to 40% of his strength. Otherwise, even if Lu Ping had the great Jinshin formation, he would at most be able to escape from immortal Jin Li. The next day, Hong Ying returned to Hearing Waves Island in high spirits and announced that Sunrise Island's Yibuki and his brothers had submitted to Hearing Waves Island. Lu Ping's subordinates now controlled Hearing Waves Island, Crimson Shadow Island, and Sunrise Island. Among the 27 islands under the control of the Three Clans Alliance, Hong Ying was still the nominal leader of the 3 islands, while Sunrise Island's Yibuki had become the second in command. What made Hong Ying even more excited was that Sunrise Island also had a miniature spiritual vein. This news was tightly concealed by Yibuki and his brothers, and not even the slightest bit of information leaked out. With his injuries under control, Lu Ping quickly arranged a formation, drawing the spiritual vein to Hearing Waves Island. With 2 spiritual veins in his immortal's cave, the spiritual chi density in his immortal's cave greatly increased, and Lu Ping's injuries rapidly improved. A few days later, the 3 islands' caravans returned. Every once in a while, the forces in the fallen secret realm would have to transport their specialties out of the secret realm and exchange them for the items they needed from the various market squares outside the realm. Most of the items were medicinal pills, magic tools, and other such items. This time, the caravan followed Lu Ping's instructions and exchanged for a lot of 500-year-old spiritual herbs from the various market squares outside the fallen secret realm. Lu Ping personally refined a few furnaces of medicinal pills and gave them to Hong Ying to distribute to the blood condensation cultivators of the 3 islands. Only then did Hong Ying and Yibuki realize that Lu Ping was actually an alchemist. Only then did they become even more respectful towards Lu Ping, not daring to have the slightest complaint. With the support of medicinal pills, the 30 or so blood condensation cultivators of the 3 islands immediately set off on a cultivation frenzy. These rogue cultivators lacked all kinds of cultivation resources, and their inheritances were also incomplete. Therefore, once they had an opportunity to increase their cultivation, their determination to cultivate was stronger than anyone else's. Lu Ping didn't care what his subordinates thought. In the battle with enlightened Master Jin Li, Lu Ping could be said to have suffered heavy losses. Not to mention that Lu Ping had spent 3 months recuperating. The Qing Han sword that had accompanied him for the longest time was shattered, and the cloudy sky was also heavily damaged. It was obvious that it wouldn't be of much use anymore. A talisman treasure had been discarded just like that, and the meteorite vital poisons had been continuously shattered. It would take a long time for Lu Ping to recuperate with his arcane energy. Right now, the only top-grade magic tools that Lu Ping could use were the crystal glaze bowl and the golden copper mirror. As for the other top-grade magic tools, Lu Ping had 2 or 3, but they weren't compatible with Lu Ping's cultivation technique, so he couldn't bring out the true power of the magic tools. The Great Gentian Array obviously couldn't be used rashly. Using the Great Gentian Array consumed an enormous amount of arcane energy, so it couldn't be used unless it was absolutely necessary. Once it was used, it had to end the battle quickly. Otherwise, Lu Ping would face the predicament of running out of arcane energy. During the battle with Enlightened Master Jinli, if it weren't for the support of 3 transformation spirit pills, Lu Ping wouldn't have been able to last until the end. Even so, most of the internal injuries Lu Ping sustained were caused by forcefully using the Great Gentian Array. Fortunately, Lu Ping's harvest this time was similarly enormous. Now was the time to use these gains to strengthen his own foundation. Lu Ping once again drew out the water from the crystal glazed bowl. This was a habit that Lu Ping often used to practice his swordsmanship when he was in seclusion. At this time, there were already 324 water swords under Lu Ping's command, revolving around Lu Ping's cave and playing around. The one in the lead was the psychic sword light, which had already increased to 162. It was as if it was the leader of these 300 or so sword lights. At this moment, Lu Ping's hand seals changed. The 300 or so water swords trembled, and suddenly, each of them split into a small sword. These small swords reappeared from the crystal glazed bowl, immediately growing to the same size as the other water swords. Finally, a total of 648 sword lights, under the lead of the 162 psychic sword lights, slowly merged into a giant water sword in the sky. Under Lu Ping's control, this water sword only needed to use the stone-piercing sky sword art once before it suddenly collapsed, turning into water droplets that filled the sky and scattered around the cave. Chapter 243. However, Lu Ping was pleasantly surprised to find that there were actually 5 high-grade spirit stones among Taoist Jinli's remaining few 100,000 spirit stones. This more or less made up for Lu Ping's regret. Originally, the carp spirit had a body of bright red scales, but in the end, it was smashed to pieces by the pestle. Lu Ping extracted all the blood from its body in preparation for the Samling's advancement to the late blood condensation realm. Lu Ping stored the jade slip in his storage ring. He would definitely return to the central plains in the future. At that time, he would follow the directions of the map and explore the secret territory. Qinyuan Island was a good place to go. Naturally, there would be no shortage of top-grade magic tools there. However, there was still more than a year before the Northern Alliance's pill gathering. In any case, he planned to go and experience it, so there was no hurry. Lu Ping looked at the remaining 2 spirit peaches, then at the 15 on the tree. These were treasures that were no less valuable than 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. They could be used to refine core forging pills, but now, Lu Ping had casually eaten one of them. Lu Ping couldn't help but rub his stomach. Then, he solemnly placed the 2 remaining spirit peaches into a large jade box. Lu Ping picked and chose among the spirit peaches and managed to scrape together enough spirit herbs for a batch of heart-dissolving pills. The blue phoenix, Lu Qin, had already advanced to the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm for some time. Lu Ping was waiting for her to completely stabilize her cultivation and build a solid foundation before refining the heart-dissolving pills for her. There were more than a dozen jade boxes in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping opened them one by one. Inside were the 1,000-year-old spirit herbs that Taoist Jinli had collected. In total, there were more than 100 of them. This clearly surprised Lu Ping. It seemed that this was the embodiment of a core forging cultivator's wealth. Samling was the spirit pet that Lu Ping could cultivate the most. They all walked the same path as Lu Ping, with a solid foundation and strong mana. Lu Ping tossed the carp demon's corpse to Samling, who was already drooling over it. A core forging realm beast cultivator's flesh and blood essence was so abundant that even without a golden core, Samling's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 6th layer of the blood condensation realm. All he needed was a condensed blood pearl or a barrier-breaking pill to break through to the late blood condensation realm. This was a profound sword technique that could only be practiced after reaching the realm of unity of sword and practice. Right now, Lu Ping could barely use it to figure out and practice, but he was still far from being able to fully unleash the power of this sword technique. The psychic wood was indeed heaven-defying. Even with the nourishment of the Kuei water's essence, the 9th grade white jade lotus still hadn't awakened its divine light after 9,000 years. In the end, Lu Ping took advantage of it. The little peach tree demon only needed 1,000 years to cultivate into a spirit because of the psychic wood within its body. Lu Ping rubbed his chin. Right now, he should be able to try refining Taoist Jin Li's golden scale sword. 1/3 of his abilities lay in his sword techniques, but after the Qing Han sword was destroyed, he didn't even have a top-grade flying sword to use. However, he had to first form his golden core. After all, the golden core represented the highest level of human cultivators. There were even several powers like the number 1 superpower, the Crystal Palace, in the Central Plains. From this, one could see how deep the foundations of the Central Plains cultivators were. However, Lu Ping also knew that the Heavenly Gates sword array was Taoist Jin Li's own inherited divine ability, and unless the cultivator was willing, it could not be forcibly taken away. Taoist Jin Li's storage magic tool had almost no medicinal pills left, and he only had a few 100,000 spirit stones left. Presumably, he had used them all up during his 2 years of seclusion and escape. For a core forging enlightened master to only have this little bit of wealth left, it could be considered miserable. Unfortunately, there was no jade slip with the Heavenly Gate sword array. This was a true divine ability of the sword, a tyrannical battle technique that could only be fully grasped after breaking through to the realm of sword intent. One of the jade slips recorded a sword technique called the Sword Technique of Unity of True Essence. It was the same sword technique that Taoist Jin Li had used to mount a sneak attack on Lu Ping on that nameless island. According to Lu Ping's knowledge, Taoist Jin Li had only broken through to the core forging stage about 20 to 30 years ago. Moreover, he had spent most of his time in the North Sea. How could he have had the time to visit the Central Plains? Legend had it that the Central Plains was the world of human cultivators. Yao cultivators who had yet to take human form would definitely not dare to roam the Central Plains. There were also 2 purple jade slips in the storage magic tool. Fortunately, these 2 jade slips had not been sealed with divine sense, so Lu Ping could take a look at them. However, the golden scale sword was a magic tool after all. Activating it consumed a lot of his transcendence energy, and it could not be used in front of others, lest they covet it. Lu Ping was naturally unafraid of a blood condensation cultivator, but if he encountered a core forging enlightened master, Lu Ping could only flee. This carp spirit's golden core was naturally the most valuable item that Lu Ping had obtained. Not to mention, this carp spirit clearly had the bloodline of a flood dragon, and it was of the pure water attribute. The other jade slip was a map. Lu Ping carefully examined it for a long time before he understood that it was a map of a secret realm. Moreover, it had been personally drawn by Taoist Jin Li. However, the area marked on the map was the Central Plains, which surprised Lu Ping. Could it be that Taoist Jin Li had been to the Central Plains before? With a flip of his hand, 3 large spirit peaches appeared in Lu Ping's palm. These were the fruits that the little peach tree demon had given to Lu Ping in the Land of 100 Flowers. After Lu Ping tricked the little peach tree demon into joining the 1,000-bell millet, Lu Ping learned that the little peach tree demon was around 2,000 years old, and it had awakened its divine light only 300 to 500 years ago. The 18 spirit peaches on the tree were the fruits of the little peach tree demon's 300 years of cultivation. When Samling advanced from early blood condensation to mid-blood condensation, Lu Ping used the blood of a late blood condensation primordial giant crocodile to concoct a barrier-breaking pill. Now that he had advanced to late blood condensation, Lu Ping could use the blood of a core-forging realm carp spirit to refine a barrier-breaking pill. Its effects were no less than the condensed blood bead refined from the flood dragon bloodline of a late blood condensation realm cultivator. Could it be that he had to find another top-grade flying sword? But before that, Lu Ping had to first dispose of Adept Jin Li's true body, that gigantic carp corpse. Lu Ping's body had a tremendous amount of transcendence energy, but a single spirit peach was able to restore 1/3 of his transcendence energy. In addition, some of the transcendence energy had penetrated deep into Lu Ping's internal organs, nourishing his body and healing his wounds. This caused Lu Ping to feel even more astonished. The Yulon River? Huh? I've heard that this is the 2nd largest river in the Central Plains. It makes sense that there would be demonic beasts roaming the river. The process of refining the gold scale sword was definitely a long-term task. After all, this was Adept Jin Li's life-bound magic treasure. Adept Jean Li's divine sense imprint and true essence imprint were deeply ingrained in the sword. Lu Ping would need to spend a large amount of time to dispel these imprints. Lu Ping didn't hesitate to eat a spirit peach. As expected, it was delicious, juicy, and as soon as the fruit entered his stomach, it instantly transformed into an enormous amount of transcendence energy, rapidly replenishing Lu Ping's depleted transcendence energy from his battle with Adept Jean Li. Chapter 244. Lu Ping now turned his attention to the pool of Kuei water essence of Qianzhong millet. This was a small pool of Kuei water essence condensed by the power of thousands of flowers in the land of hundreds of flowers. It was used to nourish the growth of the white jade lotus and even help it awaken its aura. Now this pool of Kuei water essence was in the hands of Lu Ping, and the white jade lotus had been picked by Lu Ping. The growth of the 3 white jade lotus seeds in the next 100 years obviously didn't need so much Kuei water essence, so Lu Ping naturally couldn't waste it here. After Lu Ping's nourishment for a few months, the myriad poison meteorite wind had been restored. The Kuei water essence was different from the myriad poison meteorite wind. After the myriad poison meteorite wind was condensed into the aura qi, it adopted a more corrosive method to weaken the external attack. For the North Sea Wave listening scriptures that Lu Ping cultivated the North Sea Wave listening scripture, the toughness of the water curtain heaven flower protective aura qi itself would not increase too much. However, the Kuei water essence was the opposite. It was condensed from the essence of tens of thousands of water. It could be said that it was the first choice for all cultivators who practiced water attribute cultivation method. For the cultivator's aura qi, it had no other superfluous effect. The only effect was to make the aura qi as tough as possible, so that it could resist stronger attacks head-on. It took Lu Ping a full 3 months to completely condense the second layer of the Kuei water essence on his aura qi. Lu Ping's aura qi had a layer of blue halo on the golden surface from time to time. At this time, Lu Ping's aura qi could completely resist the attack of a cultivator of the same rank using a top-rank magic tool. Lu Ping looked at the center of Qianzhong millet. The water level of the original small pool had been reduced by 2/3. However, if the white jade lotus seeds inside germinated and grew, Lu Ping didn't have to worry about the Kuei water essence decreasing in nearly 100 years. Under the golden nut tree not far away, a huge beehive had already been built. More than 200 amethyst wasps, each the size of a quail's egg, were moving in and out of the beehive. There were also quite a few amethyst wasps that flew out of the 1,000-bell millet to gather the honey of some spirit flowers and medicinal herbs. After the trip to the land of 100 flowers, many of these purple crystal bees broke through to the first layer of blood-refining realm one after another. Lu Ping played with the small jade bottle in his hand. Inside the bottle was the purple crystal honey brewed by these purple crystal bees over the past few months. Moreover, most of it came from the experience of those few hours in the land of 100 flowers. The purple crystal wasps were extremely picky when it came to collecting honey. If it wasn't for the spiritual energy contained in the stamens, they generally wouldn't pay attention to it. Therefore, most of the honey they collected were flowering spirit herbs or flowers of quite old plants. The process of collecting honey was also the process of absorbing the spiritual energy from it to cultivate. Because of this, the purple crystal wasps generally went out alone to find flowers that contained spiritual energy to collect honey. There were very few places like the land of 100 flowers where spiritual energy had been accumulated for tens, hundreds, or even thousands of years. There were only about 200 purple crystal wasps that could all go out. Lu Ping looked at the swarm of wasps going in and out in front of him and thought to himself, I wonder when this swarm of purple crystal wasps will give birth to a queen bee. At that time, I can harvest the royal jelly. It is a treasure that can be used to increase the success rate of refining pills for the core forging realm. However, when Lu Ping looked at the little bit of purple crystal honey in his hand, he felt a headache. It took a few months to brew this little bit of honey. Even if a queen bee was born, that little bit of royal jelly might not be enough for the queen bee to enjoy. It seemed that finding a large-scale garden with spiritual energy was the fundamental solution. Lu Ping was also looking forward to using this swarm of purple crystal wasps to train his Dao soldier array. When it came to a garden suitable for the growth and cultivation of purple crystal wasps, the best place was naturally a spiritual herb garden. However, those who could manage a spiritual herb garden were mostly forces of one side. A spiritual herb garden like the one on Listening Waves Island was out of the question, if Listening Waves Island was also considered a force of one side. The so-called establishment of a force of one side required at least one core forging enlightened master to hold the fort. After several years of operation, they could erect a flag among the cultivators and establish their own sect. Although Lu Ping now had 3 islands in his hands and more than 30 blood condensation cultivators under him, under his guidance, the management of the 3 islands was on the right track. However, he still chose to live in seclusion behind the scenes. Nominally, he was under the protection of the 3 sects alliance and did not dare to erect his own flag. Otherwise, the first people to come to destroy him would be the core forging enlightened master of the 3 sects alliance. Not to mention whether a force would open a spiritual herb garden to Lu Ping. Even if they agreed to open it, Lu Ping did not dare to casually let the purple crystal wasps appear in front of others. An purple crystal wasp danced in front of Lu Ping, as if it was reporting some information. Lu Ping smiled and walked out of Thousand Bell Millet. From the wooden table in the cultivation room, he picked up 4 bamboo cups made of black-spotted bamboo and placed a few spirit tea leaves in each cup. He then took out a small jade bottle filled with purple crystal honey and dripped 4 drops of purple crystal honey into each cup. Then, he poured a pot of spirit spring water into the black-spotted bamboo cups. A wave of steam rose, accompanied by the fragrance of tea. Just then, Hong Ying's loud voice came from outside the door. "Young master, Hong Ying, Yi Buki, and Wu Yin request an audience." After obtaining Lu Ping's permission, the 3 entered the room and were immediately attracted by the fragrance of tea and honey. Among the 3, Hong Ying was the oldest, had the highest cultivation, and was also the most knowledgeable. Looking at the steaming black-spotted bamboo cups on the table, he said with some nostalgia, "High-grade spirit tea? This is something only a core forging stage Taoist master can enjoy, but this spiritual qi." Yi Buki looked at the spirit tea on the table and did not speak. Wu Yin, on the other hand, swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had also drunk spirit tea, but it was of the lowest grade. Because of this, he had spent a lot of spirit stones to drink it. Lu Ping waved his hand, and 3 cups of spirit tea slowly flew towards the 3. Yi Buki reached out and drank it in one gulp. He immediately closed his eyes and began to silently refine the spiritual qi inside, causing Lu Ping to roll his eyes. This high-grade spirit tea was obtained by Lu Ping from Taoist Master Jin Li's belongings. There was only half of it left in an exquisite jade box, but it was enough for Lu Ping to drink for a while. Hong Ying accepted the bamboo cup, took a sip, and said, "High-grade spirit tea. This was 10 years ago. When I had just broken through to the 9th layer of the blood condensation realm, I was overjoyed. I went to Qinyuan City's listening courtyard and spent 100 spirit stones to drink this cup. However, young master, this high-grade spirit tea is not only fragrant, but the spiritual qi is also a bit too dense. Could it be that Old Eagle is mistaken? Is this a top-grade spirit tea?" Wu Yin held the bamboo cup with both hands and sipped it slowly, like a person who didn't know how to drink and tasted good wine for the first time. However, when he heard Hong Ying's words, he choked and coughed. He was afraid that he would spit out the tea in his mouth, so he could only swallow it. For a moment, his face turned red, and he didn't look like a cultivator anymore. Lu Ping raised the bamboo cup and took a sip, feeling the rich spiritual qi in the tea. He smiled and said, "How could this be some top-grade spirit tea? Those things aren't easy to obtain. Even if there are, most of them have been plundered by late core forging or even transcendence Laozu. I did add some other good stuff into this tea." Spirit tea can help dissolve the impurities that accumulate in the body during the cultivation process, and my tea can also help purify the magic energy in the body. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, Yi Buki, who had already circulated his magic energy in his blood, opened his eyes and said, as expected, Lu Ping couldn't be bothered with this guy, so he directly said to Hong Ying, "Sit. What's the matter?" Hong Ying put down his teacup and put on a serious expression. He then reported the situation outside the fallen mystic realm to Lu Ping. Every once in a while, the three islands would head out to trade for cultivation resources, and Hong Ying was the one who was most familiar with the situation outside the realm. So, during this period of time, there have been cultivators heading towards Qinyuan City? Just for the Northern Alliance Elixir meeting? The Northern Alliance Elixir meeting is only one of the activities for the celebration of the establishment of the Northern Cultivator Alliance. In addition, there are 4 independent activities: the Equipment Refining Conference, the Talisman Conference, and the Formation Exchange Conference. There is also a 100 Arts Conference, which is mainly for some rare cultivation skills. There are very few cultivators who are proficient in these skills, and some cultivators have never even heard of them. So, they can't carry out large-scale independent activities. They can only gather together like a hodgepodge. Those who show extraordinary achievements at the conference will be rewarded by the Northern Alliance, and they will be favored by the Northern Alliance and various forces. Therefore, this is also a way for many talented cultivators to improve their cultivation path. Lu Ping remembered that he had promised the Li family of the 3 islands to participate in the elixir meeting. It was only because he came to the fallen secret land that he was delayed until now. At that time, he might have to go to Qinyuan City to see the splendor of the largest city in the northern East Sea. Yi Buki was in charge of the defense of the 3 islands, the investigation of the other islands, and the summary of information, etc. Then, it seems that the internal affairs of the 3 alliances will not be peaceful. I'm afraid that the Wang family has already attracted other forces to drive the tiger to swallow the wolf. However, these foreign forces may also have their own plans. The Wang family may be inviting fire to burn and inviting the wolf into the house. Lu Ping thought of Senior Marshal Brother Qi from the Crystal Palace in the Land of 100 Flowers and sneered. The Wang family has already begun to secretly connect with the 27 islands and has repeatedly contacted other forces. It is estimated that they will soon test our intentions. How should we deal with them? Yi Buki secretly admired Lu Ping for being able to analyze the results from such a small amount of clues. In the end, the competition between the 3 alliances will still be decided by the enlightened masters of the core forging realm and the forces behind the 3 alliances. At most, we are just supporting them. No matter who wins or loses, we only need to protect our own foundations. Wu Yin had also witnessed Lu Ping's prowess with his own eyes, so he was in awe of Lu Ping. Under Lu Ping's guidance, he was placed in charge of the development and utilization of all the cultivation resources on the 3 islands. Under his command, every early blood condensation realm cultivator would lead a team of blood refining realm cultivators to take care of a specific task. They would either be planting spirit grains, tending to the spirit herb garden, or mining spirit ores. Under Lu Ping's guidance, the early blood condensation realm cultivators completed their tasks in an orderly manner. Not bad. It seems that the current management of the 3 islands is reasonable. I believe that in the future, everyone's cultivation resources will be much more abundant, and you can exchange them for many cultivation resources. After listening to Wu Yan's introduction, Hong Ying and Yi Buki revealed a trace of joy. The current situation of the 3 islands had far exceeded their previous situation, and this change was due to the young and mysterious cultivator in front of them. Chapter 245. Wu Yin, your cultivation has reached the peak of the 6th layer of the blood condensation realm, right? What is your foundation bloodline? Lu Ping asked casually. Wu Yin clearly didn't understand the meaning behind Lu Ping's words. She nodded and said, yes, your subordinate's foundation bloodline is the wind attribute cicada bloodline. Red Eagle and Yi Buki looked at Wu Yin enviously. What cultivation technique did you cultivate? What kind of bloodline did you replenish when you advanced to the mid-stage blood condensation realm? Wu Yin finally understood the meaning behind Lu Ping's question. Her face lit up with joy, but she suppressed the excitement in her heart and answered respectfully, your subordinate cultivated the wind and fire hybrid art that I obtained from a rogue cultivator by chance. However, this cultivation technique could only reach the 8th layer before it was discontinued. In order to cultivate both wind and fire, I merged with the fire attribute cicada bloodline when I advanced to the mid-stage blood condensation realm. After that, It took me 2 years to successfully advance to the mid-stage blood condensation realm. Wind and fire dual cultivation. Huh? Lu Ping didn't agree with this method of mixing bloodlines. Normally, a cultivator would only choose one type of bloodline, so there was a reason to maintain the purity of the bloodline. However, most cultivators couldn't do this. When advancing to the blood condensation realm, it could be due to insufficient innate talent, poor cultivation foundation, impatience, or weak willpower. Some cultivators didn't even realize this and purposely weakened the purity of their foundation bloodline, allowing the attributes of other bloodlines to be mixed in. However, they were still complacent about it, and so on and so forth. As a result, their foundation bloodline couldn't be the dominant one in their bloodline. And this was only when a cultivator was in the blood condensation realm. After entering the blood condensation realm, a cultivator would have to fuse 6 different bloodlines into one's body, making up for their bloodline strength thrice. Every mistake would affect a cultivator's future achievements. Cultivation was a contradictory process of advancing bravely, but also treading on thin ice. Of course, this was only Lu Ping's personal opinion. Some cultivators didn't cultivate like Lu Ping to maintain the purity of their bloodline. Even cultivators who cultivated pure elemental cultivation techniques couldn't do this because there were too many factors that could affect and restrict their cultivation method. On the other hand, cultivators who cultivated dual or even tri-elemental cultivation techniques could achieve great results in the end, even faster than cultivators who cultivated pure elemental cultivation techniques. Lu Ping explained the pros and cons of these cultivation methods to Wu Yan, but in fact, he was also explaining them to Hong Ying and Yi Buqi. This was the advantage of having a heritage. There were always dozens of generations of experience and research that the future cultivators could refer to and verify. Lu Ping had also collected some cultivation techniques over the years. Among them, there were a few that were related to the dual cultivation of wind and fire. However, these cultivation techniques were not much better than Wu Yan's hybrid wind and fire technique. The inheritance could only be perfected to the peak of the blood condensation realm at most. It wasn't worth it for Wu Yan to focus on other cultivation techniques and convert the primordial energy in her body into other types of energy. It would be great if Lu Ping's cultivation reached the golden core realm. At that time, Lu Ping would have the right to look up the cultivation technique jade slips of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. At that time, he would be able to find a few relatively complete inheritance techniques for his subordinates. Of course, he didn't even need to think about the true inheritance techniques. Lu Ping pondered for a moment and took out 2 jade slips from his storage ring. He said, "During the Heaven Essence Pill gathering, Hong Ying will accompany me to Heaven Essence City. When the time comes, you should go with him. If you can obtain the dual elemental wind and fire cicada bloodline, you can use it to break through to the late blood condensation realm. As for your cultivation technique, I don't have any good inheritance in my hands right now." These 2 jade slips each contain a dual elemental wind and fire cultivation technique. Although they are only perfected to the late blood condensation realm, you can use them for reference. If you can perfect your cultivation technique to the peak of the blood condensation realm, that would naturally be the best. These were 2 inheritance jade slips. In the eyes of a wandering cultivator, they were incomparably precious. What was an inheritance jade slip? It wasn't a secret technique that was recorded in words and handed over to the cultivator for them to figure out and cultivate. An inheritance jade slip was a collection of cultivation techniques and cultivation techniques. It included everything related to these 2 techniques: cultivation experience, understanding, refining of magic treasures, the choice of natal magic treasures, suitable cultivation pills, and so on. Every inheritance jade slip could be said to be a small encyclopedia of the cultivation world. For example, the North Sea Wave listening technique that Lu Ping cultivated was a combination of the North Sea Wave listening technique and the Flying Spirit treading the sea art. In addition to the North Sea 12 techniques related to cultivation techniques, there were more than 10 choices for refining natal magic treasures. There were also 7 or 8 ways to improve natal magic treasures. There were even 3 suitable treasures that could be used to improve the quality of magic treasures, and so on. These things were in Junling. Logically speaking, only cultivators who had reached the core forging realm or made great contributions to the sect would receive the complete inheritance. However, Lu Ping was a direct disciple, so he could also receive the complete inheritance. Moreover, only half of his cultivation technique was from Zhenling. The other half came from Fei Ling's sect, which had been destroyed thousands of years ago. Wu Yan's hands trembled as she received the jade slips. Although Hong Ying and Yi Buqi tried their best to remain calm, their bright eyes were fixed on the jade slips in Wu Yan's hands. From time to time, their eyes flashed with envy. Lu Ping was born in a big sect. Relying on his own efforts, he was favored by Master Xianling naturally. He had seen many inheritances. In these years, he had traveled everywhere, and the number of cultivators who had died in his hands was not small. Although there were few inheritance jade slips, he did not realize that this kind of thing was far more precious than he had imagined in the eyes of a rogue cultivator. The three of them left Lu Ping's cultivation room. Hong Ying and Yi Buqi were thinking about their own things, as if they wanted to say something but stopped. Wu Yin was still immersed in the joy of getting the 2 jade slips. From time to time, she would touch the storage bag on her waist for fear of losing the 2 jade slips. After the three of them walked far away, Hong Ying could not help but ask, "What kind of person do you think the young master is?" Yi Buqi looked at him expressionlessly. A trace of awe and gratitude flashed in Wu Yan's eyes from time to time. She lowered her eyelids and did not speak. It seemed that Hong Ying did not expect the two of them to answer. He continued, "I, Hong Ying, have been fighting in the secret land of Fallen Mountain for decades. I have experienced life and death several times. I believe that my subordinates are no weaker than those so-called elite disciples in the sect who only have cultivation and spiritual power, but have not experienced many life and death battles. Even so, I and my 4 brothers could not last more than 3 rounds against the young master." Chapter 246. The Red Eagle paused. Yi Buqi's face was still as calm as water, but his eyes shone brightly from time to time, as if he was recalling something unimaginable. Wu Yin lowered her head and was at a loss. She didn't know whether she should leave or stay here. Hong Ying stared at Yi Buqi and suddenly asked in a low voice, "Yi Buqi, once the 6 directions battle formation in your 6 brothers' hands is combined, even Qi Lianying of Flying Rainbow Island couldn't do anything to you. It is said that Qi Lianying is an abandoned disciple of a big sect in the East Sea. She is said to be the strongest on the 27 islands. It is also said that she once escaped from a perfected master of the core forging realm." Yi Buqi stared at the Red Eagle without saying a word. The Red Eagle opened its mouth and said something that frightened Yi Buqi even more. "Is the young master a perfected master of the core forging realm?" Wu Yin, who had been thinking about something with her head lowered, suddenly raised her head, glanced at Red Eagle, and then turned to look at Yi Buqi. Her eyes, which had always been submissive, suddenly burst out with an inexplicable brilliance. Yi Buqi stared at Hong Ying blankly for a long time, as if he was recalling something. After a while, he reacted and said coldly, "The young master is not a perfected master of the core forging realm." Then he left. However, when he turned around, there was a trace of confusion in his eyes. It seemed that even he couldn't figure out who Lu Ping was. Wu Yin lowered her head again, and her eyes became gloomy again. It was obvious that she was a little disappointed. Hong Ying looked at Yi Buqi's back thoughtfully, then turned around and left without saying a word. Wu Yin looked at the 2 people who had left and suddenly didn't know what to do. After a long time, she suddenly patted her head, as if she had remembered that there was something that Lu Ping had asked her to do, so she hurriedly left. In the cultivation room, Lu Ping suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes flashed with a dark light, like a pool of unfathomable autumn water. He smiled and then closed his eyes again to cultivate. 2 days later, Lu Ping took out a piece of black wood from his interspatial ring. There was less than a year left until the North Alliance alchemy meet. Perhaps it was time for him to make some preparations. This piece of soul-nourishing wood had been in Lu Ping's hands for several years. After secretly exchanging the spirit-forging pill with Taoist master Jiang Xianlin for this profound-level middle-rank world spirit wood, Lu Ping had been secretly cultivating the splitting soul secret technique. For several years, he had been enduring the great pain caused by the tearing of his divine sense and had been practicing diligently. In order to maintain the advantage of having twice the strength of an ordinary person's divine sense, Lu Ping had practiced a total of 3 sets of secret techniques that could strengthen divine sense. The spirit nourishing technique had increased the range of Lu Ping's divine sense by nearly 1/3. By chance, he had obtained the mysterious leaf grass and successfully refined 12 soul expansion pills, which had increased the range of Lu Ping's divine sense by another 30 meters. The last was the splitting soul technique, which used the soul-nourishing wood as a sustenance, which had increased the strength of Lu Ping's divine sense by nearly 90 meters. After the divine sense contained in the soul-nourishing wood had fused with Lu Ping's divine sense, Lu Ping had to reintegrate and familiarize himself with the newly increased divine sense so that he could truly command it with ease. After Lu Ping finally completed the splitting soul technique, more than a month had passed. Lu Ping's divine sense could now cover a radius of more than 2 miles. The huge divine sense suddenly spread out, catching Lu Ping off guard. The cultivators on Tingtao Island all felt a huge aura suddenly surround them, and the chill made these cultivators tremble from head to toe. Fortunately, Lu Ping reacted in time. He quickly took full control of the divine sense and began to gather it towards Lu Ping's cave dwelling. However, Lu Ping was once again careless. With such a huge area of coverage, even a first-layer core forging enlightened master could only cover a radius of 1 to 2 miles at most. Although the divine sense was inferior to the divine sense, when a divine sense with such a huge area of coverage was gathered together, the quantitative change finally led to a qualitative change. Above Lu Ping's cave dwelling, a faint blue shadow swayed in all directions, changing into various shapes. A huge pressure suddenly came from above the cave dwelling, and the blood condensation cultivators on Tingtao Island felt as if a heavenly river was collapsing above their heads, and they were about to face a catastrophe. Many blood refining cultivators who were tending to the spiritual fields or collecting spiritual herbs were directly shocked by the pressure, and they fainted on the ground. The pressure came and went so quickly that a few early blood condensation cultivators thought that there was something wrong with their cultivation. They quickly returned to their cave dwellings to meditate, afraid that they would suffer from qi deviation. Fortunately, all the mid-blood condensation cultivators on the island were working for Hong Ying and Yi Buki. Only Wu Yin was left on Tingtao Island. Wu Yin immediately jumped up when the aura descended on her. Lu Ping was the one who did all the work, so he was the one in charge. Wu Yin naturally knew what happened. He looked in the direction of Lu Ping's cave dwelling in awe. His heart was already in turmoil. This is the divine sense pressure of a core forging enlightened master. Could it be that young master is really a core forging enlightened master like Honging guessed? But why is Ibuki so certain that he is not? Wu Yan's eyes lit up. Could it be that young master had successfully advanced and just reached the gold core realm? But he immediately denied this thought. Advancing to the core forging realm would not only result in a huge whirlpool of spiritual energy, but there would also be astronomical phenomena. However, Tingtao Island was currently calm, so how could there be any astronomical phenomena? Just as Wu Yin was hesitating whether he should go to Lu Ping's cave dwelling to ask for instructions, a voice reached his ears. Wu Yan's expression stiffened. Then, as if he had understood some kind of mission, he bowed in the direction of Lu Ping's cave dwelling, turned around, and left in a hurry. His divine sense sensed that Wu Yin had followed his instructions. Lu Ping heaved a long sigh of relief. He was too careless. He didn't expect his divine sense to have the embryonic form of a core forging enlightened master's divine sense pressure. Fortunately, he was on Tingtao Island. If he was in a densely populated area, he might have caused a lot of trouble. Lu Ping remembered the female alchemist Chu Ting he met in the Li family of the Three Families Island. She had a secret technique that could transform her divine sense into divine sense before she advanced to the core forging realm. However, this kind of divine sense was too weak for a core forging enlightened master. However, this secret technique was extremely precious for a blood condensation realm alchemist. Divine sense was an important obstacle for alchemists to successfully refine half-step core forging realm pills, or even core forging realm pills. Chu Ting was able to successfully refine a 7-step marked pill because of the divine sense into thought secret technique. Lu Ping did not know the divine sense into thought secret technique. The reason why his divine sense could possess the power of divine sense was mainly because he had contracted his huge divine sense to the extreme, so it temporarily possessed the power of divine sense. Lu Ping's intuition told him that his alchemy technique was about to usher in another breakthrough. Could the temporarily possess the power of divine sense allow him to refine core forging realm pills? Just thinking about it made Lu Ping excited. However, now was clearly not the time to concoct a core forging realm medicinal pellet. Not to mention the large number of thousand-year-old spirit herbs required to concoct a core forging realm medicinal pellet. Lu Ping only had 2 core forging realm medicinal pellet recipes. One was the golden marrow pellet recipe from his alchemist Shang Tao, and the other was obtained from Failing Island. Junior brother Lin is young and promising. Enlightened Kunshin thinks highly of you. Hurry up and go to the southeast corner. The baleful qi is relatively stronger there. The leader of the Crystal Palace cultivators reminded junior brother Lin fervently. Wang Yimu, who had arrived earlier, had been ignored. Chapter 247. Junior brother Lin nodded and glanced at Wang Yimu behind him. Then he turned to senior brother Ma and said, Senior brother Ma, you've worked hard. Kunshin Jinren will definitely reward you. Maybe the last place will be yours. Senior brother Ma was overjoyed and said, Junior brother Lin, please put in a good word for me in front of Kunshin Jinren. Junior brother Lin nodded and entered the cave. You guys are too much. Wang Yimu looked at the Crystal Palace cultivators standing in front of him and letting junior brother Lin go first. Finally, he said angrily, I'm here under the order of Wang Hua Zhenren. Why do you keep making things difficult for me? Senior brother Ma and the others looked at Wang Yimu with a mocking expression and said, Making things difficult for you? Did we say that you weren't allowed to enter the land of 100 flowers? So what if I make things difficult for you? Don't forget, this is the territory of my Water Crystal Palace. Your Wang family has been treated so well by my Water Crystal Palace. Not only are you not grateful, you even want a yard after being given an inch? Wang Yimu knew that they were deliberately making things difficult for him. He took the jade token from senior brother Ma and walked into the cave without looking back. Senior brother Ma's sarcastic voice came from behind. After you go in, go to the southwest corner. That's where the disciples of the Wang family condense their evil qi. Wang Yimu turned around angrily and said, You're too much. My cousin Wang Yiheng condensed his evil qi in the southwest corner last time. The evil qi there must be thin. How can he condense it again? Senior brother Ma replied with a sneer, Go or not. I think there are still many cultivators in the Wang family who haven't condensed their evil qi yet, right? Don't blame me for not reminding you. If you go to the wrong place, you'll be driven out by the patrolling senior brother. Wang Yimu wanted to return to his encampment and explain the situation to Perfected Wang Hua, but he suddenly remembered Perfected Wang Hua's hint and the envious expressions of his brothers. He glared at senior brother Ma and turned to enter the cave abode. Senior brother Ma and the others exchanged glances and sneered. One of the cultivators behind Wang Yimu reminded him, Kid, you only have 3 days. After 3 days, regardless of whether you have finished condensing your killing intent or not, you must leave the land of 100 flowers. If not, we will have no choice but to expel you. Wang Yimu's figure paused for a moment, then he continued to walk into the cave. However, no one realized that while everyone was entangled at the entrance of the cave, a blue figure had already hidden above the entrance of the cave. Then, the blue figure released a fat gray spirit beast from the spirit beast back. After the blue figure rode on the spirit beast, the man and the spirit beast strangely sank down from the stone slope. The stone art was different from the earth art. Although the two were essentially the same, the stone art was much more difficult than the earth art. Hence, after Debao sent Lu Ping to the cave in the land of 100 flowers, he once again exhausted his spiritual energy and laid on the ground, playing dead. The land of 100 flowers was still shrouded in a thick fog, but the color of the fog had changed from pink to a faint gray. This was because the cultivators had used a large amount of the 100 flowers' baneful qi to condense their protective astral energy, leaving only the black 100 flowers miasma in the fog. That was why the fog had a faint gray color. Lu Ping moved his divine thought and immediately covered most of the land of flowers. He cleverly avoided a few patrolling Crystal Palace cultivators and slowly walked toward the depths of the land of flowers. At this moment, a divine sense casually swept across the land of 100 flowers. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly took out 2 stone slabs from his storage ring. He placed one on his left and the other on his right. The divine sense swept past Lu Ping's body calmly, but it didn't find anything amiss. Then, the divine sense withdrew. It seemed that not only were there patrolling cultivators, but there were also cultivators who carefully checked with divine thought from time to time. The cultivators of the Crystal Palace paid a lot of attention to this place. Lu Ping continued to move toward the depths of the land of flowers. Every 100 meters, there would be 3 cultivators of the Crystal Palace patrolling. At the same time, in order to avoid the thick fog, they also used divine thought to check the surrounding area from time to time. Lu Ping gradually frowned. Why would the cultivators of the Crystal Palace pay so much attention to a land of flowers that had lost its flower king? Why would they send so many cultivators to patrol it? Lu Ping didn't believe that it was because of the evil qi of the flowers. After Lu Ping and senior brother Qi collected the evil qi, the remaining evil qi was extremely thin. The Crystal Palace wouldn't go through so much trouble just for a land of flowers. Moreover, the cultivators of the Crystal Palace were obviously strict on the inside. Apart from senior brother Ma, the 4 cultivators guarding the cave entrance had ordinary cultivations. The cultivators of the Crystal Palace inside the cave were either at the peak of the blood condensation realm or at the level 8 of the blood condensation realm. Spiritual energy rippled from their bodies. Obviously, their foundations were very solid. The 2 stone slabs in Lu Ping's hands were taken from the cave entrance. Not only could they avoid the detection of the cultivator's divine sense, but they could also hide the fluctuations of their Dharma power. Lu Ping used his divine sense, and Qianzhong millet flew out from his storage ring. It slowly opened above Lu Ping's head. More than 200 purple crystal bees swarmed out of their nest. In an instant, they spread out and flew toward the flowers in the land of flowers. The appearance of the purple crystal bees quickly attracted the attention of the patrolling cultivators. However, the land of 100 flowers was quite vast. With more than 200 purple crystal bees scattered, even if a cultivator accidentally found 1 or 2, it would not arouse their vigilance. The cultivators who found the purple crystal bees would not know that these bees with purple on their heads were the famous purple crystal bees in the cultivation world. Because the purple crystal bees would fly back to Lu Ping from time to time, Lu Ping had to wander around the land of flowers in order not to attract the attention of the cultivators in the Crystal Palace. Relying on the 2 stone slabs from the temple and his divine sense, which was far superior to others, he wasn't afraid of being discovered by the cultivators in the Crystal Palace. At this time, Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly discovered that the fog in the land of flowers suddenly started to flow slowly. The thin 100-flower evil qi contained in the fog also flowed southwest along with the flow of the fog. If it wasn't for Lu Ping's extraordinary divine sense, he probably wouldn't have discovered this trend. In the southwest, wasn't that the disciple of the Wang family condensing evil qi? He didn't expect this person to have a secret technique that could condense evil qi. Although the 100-flower evil qi in the land of flowers was thin, if one could use a secret technique to condense the evil qi in the land of flowers, it would be enough for a late blood condensation cultivator to condense their earth qi to perfection. Lu Ping didn't mind. Instead, he instinctively avoided the Wang family disciple and wandered in other directions. 2 days later, the purple crystal bees had collected and brewed quite a lot of honey. More than 200 purple crystal bees had all advanced to the first layer of blood refining realm, and more than 20 of them had already reached the peak of the first layer. Lu Ping believed that they would advance to the second layer in the next few days. Only when all the purple crystal bees reached the 3rd layer of blood refining realm would a queen be born. At that time, Lu Ping's bee colony would expand, and only then would he be able to brew purple crystal royal jelly. However, he didn't know how long the millions of flowers in the land of flowers could last for the purple crystal bees. At this time, the 100-flower evil qi around Lu Ping suddenly stopped gathering in the southwest direction. It seemed that the Wang family cultivator who used the secret technique to condense the 100-flower evil qi had finished condensing his earth qi. But then, the Wang family cultivator suddenly disappeared from Lu Ping's divine sense. Chapter 248. Disappeared? Lu Ping was stunned. Lu Ping once again carefully explored the area where Wang Yimu was, but still found nothing. This is interesting. Lu Ping rubbed his chin and suddenly became interested in this cultivator of the Wang family. Lu Ping walked toward the area where Wang Yimu was and superimposed his divine sense. Lu Ping had used this method many times. Although it reduced the coverage of Lu Ping's divine sense by half, he could explore the area more thoroughly. This was also a common method that Lu Ping often used to detect cultivators who used spells such as invisibility. However, Wang Yimu's concealment method was obviously beyond Lu Ping's expectation. Lu Ping intended to superimpose his divine sense again, but in that case, such a thick divine sense would inevitably alert the cultivators of the Crystal Palace who were patrolling nearby. Just when Lu Ping was hesitating whether to use this method, his divine sense trembled slightly and captured some clues. It turned out that the cultivator of the Wang family was walking in the direction where Lu Ping was. Since he had found his trace, Lu Ping naturally would not let him disappear from his divine sense again. He immediately followed from a distance to see what this mysterious person was going to do. At this moment, Lu Ping's divine sense moved again and found that there was another thing moving quickly in front of Wang Yimu, and Wang Yimu was obviously following this thing. This is? Spirit-seeking mouse? Lu Ping became more interested this time. The other party actually had a spirit-seeking mouse, and this spirit-seeking mouse seemed to have a cultivation of level 9 of blood refining realm. Obviously, it was deliberately cultivated. However, what was the other party looking for? Before this, Lu Ping had asked Debao to search the land of 100 flowers for about half a day. With Debao's cultivation of middle-stage blood refining realm, Lu Ping was confident that this spirit-seeking mouse would not find anything that even Debao could not. In front of him was a huge pit created by Lu Ping after he moved the little peach tree monster to the 1,000-bell millet. The spirit-seeking mouse ran to the bottom of the pit and sniffed around, but it couldn't find anything. It then ran back up dejectedly. Wang Yimu was not discouraged. He stroked the head of the spirit-seeking mouse, took out a pill from his storage bag, and fed it. Spirit-addicting fragrance? This surprised Lu Ping again. He did not expect this cultivator from the Wang family to have such a treasure. Could there really be a treasure in the land of 100 flowers that Lu Ping had not discovered before? The spirit-addicting fragrance was actually a type of pill. The greatest use of this pill was to maximize the innate talent of the spirit pet. Just when Lu Ping was puzzled, Wang Yimu, who had been left behind by Lu Ping, finally arrived nearby with the help of his spirit-seeking mouse. Lu Ping smirked maliciously, got out of the way, and quietly hid on the other side of the pit. After a while, he heard the Crystal Palace cultivators shout, "Who is it?" Wang Yimu, who had triggered the inhibition, was like a sensitive bird, desperately trying to escape. With the secret skill of hiding his breath, he instantly lost the perception of divine awareness. However, how could the alarmed water Crystal Palace cultivators let the matter rest? While this place was not impregnable, despite being guarded by so many water Crystal Palace cultivators, they had still allowed an outsider to enter. How could the water Crystal Palace cultivators, who had always prided themselves on being the pride of the heavens, not feel enraged? Out of the 12 cultivators guarding the place, 10 of them rushed out. Thankfully, 2 of them retained some semblance of rationality. They did not forget their duty. Next, however, they saw a golden-colored flying sword fly out from the thick fog. The flying sword left a long trail of light behind it, instantly dazzling the 2 cultivators' eyes. By the time the 2 cultivators were able to adjust to the dazzling golden light, they saw that their respective backs had lost their heads. Lu Ping did not show any mercy when killing the Crystal Palace cultivators. The overflowing sea gang of the North Sea was obviously an extension of the Crystal Palace's power. Their hands were stained with the blood of the North Sea cultivators. Lu Ping reached out and took the 2 storage bags in his hand. He scanned them with his divine awareness. His luck was not bad. There was a top-grade flying sword inside. Although it was a lot worse than the Qinghan sword, it could temporarily make do with it. After all, the golden scale sword was a magic weapon, and it consumed too much magic power to use. The big pit in front of them was left by Lu Ping when he moved the white jade lotus pond. The difference was that at the bottom of the big pit, there was a big hole, or rather, a tunnel, that extended deep into the ground. The tunnel was dark, and only a weak but extremely pure spiritual energy was emitted. Debao immediately ran to the side of Lu Ping's feet. There was a treasure down there. After pondering it for a moment, Lu Ping decided to head towards the entrance of the cave. When he reached the entrance of the cave, Lu Ping turned around and waved his hand to collect the corpses of the 2 Crystal Palace cultivators. At the same time, he wiped away the blood on the ground. It looked as though all the cultivators guarding the entrance of the cave had gone after the cultivator who had broken into the forbidden area. Although the tunnel was dark, after Lu Ping had moved forward for a certain distance, the stone walls around him gradually shone with a crystalline luster. The spiritual energy swirling around Lu Ping gradually grew thicker as well. Lu Ping was shocked. Could this be? After moving forward for a certain distance, clanking sounds finally came from the depths of the cave, further confirming Lu Ping's guess. Lu Ping used the Mirage Gauze robe to change his aura. He used the 2 stone slabs to prevent his divine awareness from probing and to conceal his magic power fluctuations. At the same time, he used the invisibility technique improved from the invisible sword formula to conceal his figure. Only then did he feel at ease and slowly walked in the direction of the sound. Senior Brother 1, I'm afraid that no matter how hard the cultivators of the 3 Families Island and the Northern Alliance speculated, they would never have thought that there was not only a land of 100 flowers on this barren island, but also a medium-sized spirit stone vein under the land of 100 flowers. Hee, that's right. Our sect's Firmament Laozu is a grandmaster who surveys all kinds of mineral veins and spirit veins. Through some kind of method, he has long found out that there is a spirit stone vein in the area of the 3 Families Alliance in the Fallen Mystery area. However, he has never been clear about its specific location. That's why our sect tried to break up the 3 Families Alliance and make the Wang family of the 3 Families Alliance join our Crystal Palace. Our purpose is to find a way to set our sect's influence in this area. After all, this area is nominally under the protection of the Northern Alliance. Unexpectedly, we accidentally found this vein in the land of 100 flowers. Thanks to Sage Kunshin's superior wisdom, Sage Wang Hua was able to give this island to our sect with just a few words. They are just some blind cultivators. I think they have reached the early stage of the core forging realm by luck. They can't be compared with Sage Kunshin. It's extremely dangerous. I heard that someone found the King of 100 Flowers in the land of 100 Flowers before Sage Kunshin's disciple, Qi Shimin, and took it away. Fortunately, that person was also blind and didn't know that there was a medium-sized spirit stone vein under the King of 100 Flowers. So that's how it is. They are really blind. Lu Ping gave a wry smile. No wonder the white jade lotus could gather 4 or 5 mini spirit veins. He had always thought that those spirit veins were formed by gathering the power of the entire land of 100 flowers. Now that he thought about it, this explanation was really a bit far-fetched. After all, the entire land of 100 flowers could condense a pool of Kuei water essence for the white jade lotus. Now that he had come here, how could Lu Ping return empty-handed from a treasure mountain? Rubbing his chin, Lu Ping began to think about how to avoid those cultivators and make a fortune without being noticed. Chapter 249. Since he was already here, how could Lu Ping return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain? Lu Ping rubbed his chin and began to think about how to make a fortune without anyone noticing. If he wanted to enter the vein, the 2 cultivators guarding the vein were an obstacle. At this moment, someone outside the cave called out, "Senior Brother 1, Senior Brother Tian. What's the matter down there? What's wrong? What happened?" The 2 cultivators guarding the vein knew that there were 12 cultivators guarding the cave entrance, but now they asked if something happened in the vein. Obviously, there was something wrong on the ground. The 2 hurriedly ran out of the cave and asked, "Here's my chance." Lu Ping was delighted. He grabbed Debeo's whiskers and leaned against the stone wall. One person and one mouse once again crashed into the stone wall. The two Crystal Palace cultivators who ran over did not notice that Lu Ping was hiding behind them. After the two passed by, Lu Ping came out of the wall with Debeo and quickly walked toward the vein. Spirit stone veins were a peculiar existence. The peculiar thing was that under certain conditions, they could be regenerated, and the cycle of this regeneration was generally about 500 years. Therefore, whenever a spirit stone vein was discovered, cultivators would often estimate the reserves of the spirit stone vein and set a daily mining volume with a cycle of 500 years. Then, mining and backfilling would be carried out at the same time. This way, the spirit stone vein could continuously produce a fixed amount of spirit stones every day. Of course, all of this was under an ideal situation. The process of mining and self-regeneration of the spirit stone vein was always accompanied by the dissipation of spirit chi. Therefore, in fact, the spirit stone reserves in the spirit stone vein would eventually become less and less. It was just that this time would be delayed for a long time, and the other dissipated spirit chi, under the magical effect of nature, would form new spirit veins again in a specific environment for cultivators to rediscover and excavate. This medium-sized vein had a total of 20 veins. Now, only 4 had been mined. The spirit stone miners inside were all blood-refining realm cultivators, and the clanking sounds were everywhere. It seemed that the Crystal Palace's plan was to mine every 4 veins in 100 years. After backfilling, they would mine the other 4 veins. After this cycle, exactly 500 years would have passed, and the first 4 veins could be mined and backfilled again. Without needing Lu Ping's instructions, Debeo stepped forward and chose a vein that it thought was of the best quality among the 16 unmined veins. Then, it plunged into it. Just as the 2 Crystal Palace cultivators outside the cave were about to return, Debeo finally came out of the vein and disappeared again with Lu Ping. Those fellows outside are truly good-for-nothings. To think that they would allow a cultivator to reach the entrance of the cave before realizing it. Although the spirit stone mine is not exposed, our Crystal Palace has made a great discovery on an island within the 3 Families Alliance's territory. This news will likely spread throughout the entire Fallen Pocket Zone in no time at all. Senior Brother Wen's face was extremely ugly to behold. The Wang family is so bold to set a trap for the Crystal Palace. Aren't they afraid of being exterminated? Brother Tian scolded fiercely. The Wang family may not have the courage. This disciple of the Wang family must have acted on his own. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that someone is impersonating him. Brother Wen thought for a while and calmly analyzed. At this moment, a voice-transmitting talisman floated in front of Brother Wen. He grabbed the talisman and listened to it for a while. Then, his expression changed. He snorted coldly and passed the talisman to Brother Tian next to him. When Senior Brother Tian heard the message from the voice transmission talisman, he mumbled, "How could they have escaped? Even if the other party had someone to support them, how could so many brothers not be able to stop 2 people? Brother Wen said coldly, "After they left the Nameless Island, they didn't return to the Bright Moon Island where the Wang family is stationed. Instead, they fled in the direction of the 27th Outer Island. Some brothers have already chased after them. Brother Ma, who is on duty there, has already informed Kunshinjunren. I think Kunshinjunren will catch up with them soon. Once they are caught, let's see what the Wang family will say." Brother Tian said gloatingly, "Brother Ma is doomed. He not only let the spy in, but also failed to stop them. I heard that he has long wanted to condense the 4 spots for the 100 flowers killing aura. Kunshinjunren is also considering it. Now, not to mention the spots, he will have to face the wall for at least 10 years. If the news of the medium-sized spirit stone vein on the island is leaked, he will die." Debeo was indeed a master of digging holes. In a moment of effort, he had made a space for Lu Ping to squat down in the vein. Although there was a stone wall between them, and Lu Ping's spiritual sense was greatly weakened, but Lu Ping still clearly heard the conversation between Brother Wan and Brother Tian. However, Lu Ping didn't care about this now, because all his attention was on the spirit stone vein in front of him. A medium-sized spirit stone vein was already a mixture of low-grade and medium-grade spirit stones. But more importantly, a medium-sized spirit stone vein would occasionally be mixed with some high-grade spirit stones, although the probability was very small. For the sake of long-term considerations, cultivators generally planned a spirit stone vein for a period of 500 years, and then used this to determine whether the output of the spirit stone vein was small, medium-sized, or large-scale. But this didn't mean that the spirit stone vein couldn't be overexploited. On the contrary, once overexploited, a small spirit stone vein could easily produce the output of a large-scale spirit stone vein in a short period of time. But the consequence was that the spirit stone vein was likely to be exhausted after a few decades. What Lu Ping wanted to do now was to exhaust the goose that laid the golden eggs. The reason was very simple. In the game of the various forces in the East China Sea, his name would not be on the list of the owner of this spirit vein. Since it was not mine, why should I care about him? Lu Ping's idea was very simple. He asked Debao to continuously dig several cave spaces along this spirit vein, and then let his pets go together. In each space, he let two spirit beasts dig spirit stones from two opposite directions. This way, it would be fast, the harvest would be big, and it would save time. His 6 demonic beasts, plus Lu Ping, made a total of 7 laborers. In this spirit vein, apart from cultivating every day, they were constantly digging spirit stones. In order not to arouse the vigilance of the cultivators in the Crystal Palace, Lu Ping deliberately let Debao continue to dig several deep holes in the depths of the spirit vein. In this way, even if there was a core forging sage to investigate, Lu Ping would not be afraid of being discovered. Lu Ping opened the Qianzhong Su so that his demonic beasts could freely enter and exit this spatial artifact. Then, a steady stream of spirit stones was piled up in a corner of the artifact. However, Lu Ping specifically told them that once they found a high-grade spirit stone, they must give it to him alone. Lu Ping put it in his own storage ring. The use of high-grade spirit stones was far above its value. In a trance, half a year had passed. Suddenly, there was a rumbling vibration on the ground, and a strange force was being transmitted along the spirit vein, as if to completely seal the area where the spirit vein was located. Chapter 250. Oh no, this is the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking great array. Did they finally finish setting it up? Without thinking, Lu Ping took back the Qianzhong millet, and then rolled the 5 spirit beasts into the spirit beast bag. Riding on Debao, they flew to the ground. The pulse-suppressing spirit-locking great array was used to confine the earth veins, to prevent the loss of spiritual qi, and to prevent theft and destruction from the outside. This kind of great array was usually used by big sects to confine spiritual mines or earth veins. Once this kind of great array was used, it basically meant that the sect had declared the ownership of the spiritual mine or earth veins. Of course, Lu Ping knew how important a medium-sized spiritual stone mine was to a sect, so this great array would definitely be used. However, the arrangement of the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking great array was really complicated and delicate, and most of the materials used were of high grade. In addition, the Crystal Palace was so far away from the fallen secret land. In Lu Ping's opinion, it would take at least a year for the great array to be set up. By then, he could naturally leave in advance without being noticed. After all, Lu Ping had underestimated the power of the Crystal Palace, the giant of the East Sea. As Lu Ping broke away from the shackles of the great array, he was secretly anxious. This kind of great array required the help of spiritual masters in the core forging realm. If he was discovered by a spiritual master in the core forging realm, Lu Ping would really die here. Lu Ping emerged from the ground with 2 big slates on his head and happened to encounter a divine thought wandering nearby. Cold sweat suddenly flowed down Lu Ping's back, and he stood there holding the 2 slates, not daring to move. The divine thought wandered around for a while and then withdrew, not finding Lu Ping on the side. Lu Ping managed to escape death, but he didn't dare to put down the stone slab in his hand for even a second. Along the way, he evaded a few groups of patrolling disciples from the Crystal Palace. Clearly, these disciples didn't do their best to investigate. After all, there were several core forging realm enlightened masters here today. Who would dare to come and seek death? Lu Ping didn't have the time or mood to sigh about his good luck. He opened Xinjiang Millet and called back all the purple crystal bees that were still lingering in the land of 100 flowers. He quickly approached the entrance of the cave with Debeo. Naturally, he wouldn't go out directly. Instead, he grabbed Debeo from the stone wall at the entrance and escaped to the stone slope outside. Fortunately, Debeo had been cultivating and digging spirit stones in the spiritual stone vein for more than half a year. His cultivation was close to the blood condensation realm, and his spiritual energy was much stronger. Otherwise, Lu Ping would have to find a way to help. Debeo up the spiritual energy first. On the big stone slope of the nameless island, a man and a mouse slowly rose up from a big rock. This time, however, they were not so lucky. In addition to the 4 cultivators from Water Crystal Palace, there were also 5 to 6 cultivators in different attire. The narrow entrance of the cave was simply incapable of accommodating so many people. Thus, the cultivators who were familiar with each other spread out to chat with each other. What was even more unfortunate was that a man and a woman, who seemed to be in love, happened to be standing face to face in front of the big rock that Lu Ping appeared on. When Lu Ping rose from the big rock, he happened to be standing next to the 2 cultivators who were in the middle of a deep conversation. The 2 were shocked by Lu Ping's strange method. The 2, who were immersed in the river of love, obviously lost the reaction that a cultivator should have. Just when the 2 realized what they should do, the golden scale sword had already slashed their throats. The fluctuation of spiritual energy finally alerted the cultivators nearby. Everyone's divine sense swept over to investigate. Lu Ping used the mirage gauze robe to cover his face and muddle his aura. He used the 2 big stone slabs to block the divine sense and divine sense from locking onto him. Then, he used the invisible sword art to conceal himself. Finally, he used the magic cloud to fly away from the island. Only heaven knew how many forces and core forging enlightened masters were on the island. Who dares to behave atrociously here? An angry roar pierced through the air, and a domineering divine sense had already arrived. However, when the divine sense passed through Lu Ping's body, it was as if the divine sense had punched nothing but air. There was no force behind it at all. Lu Ping released the 3 spirit snakes from the spirit beast bag. Samling worked together with Lu Ping's crazy output of spiritual energy. In the blink of an eye, the magic cloud had already flown several miles away. Just when a black-faced Taoist jumped out of the cave on the nameless island, Lu Ping's shadow was already nowhere to be seen in the sky. At this moment, a muffled bang suddenly came from under the feet of the black-faced Taoist. The entire nameless island shook, and a tsunami tens of feet high rose from the sea, rushing towards the island. The black-faced Taoist impatiently waved his hand, and the raging waves suddenly calmed down. The vein suppression spirit lock array was finally completed. The middle-sized spirit vein was imprisoned inside and became the property of all the forces present. They no longer had to worry about anyone coveting this spirit vein. The black-faced Taoist was about to give chase when a faint voice came. "Brotherly, there is no need to chase. This person's spiritual energy is even stronger than Qi Lianying's. I'm afraid it is already too late to catch up." Lu Ping had changed directions several times during his escape. At this time, he was nearly 100 miles away from the nameless island. After landing on a coral reef on the sea, Lu Ping fiercely gasped for breath. Lu Ping had always been proud of his spiritual energy against cultivators of the same level as him. But during this period of time, he had repeatedly shown signs of lacking spiritual energy. This really made Lu Ping feel helpless. Lu Ping took out a spiritual recovery pill from his storage ring and swallowed it. Only then did he return to Soundwave Island. When he returned to the cultivation room, Lu Ping did not alert anyone on the island. Lu Ping used his divine sense to scan the island and found that Wu Yin and Hong Ying were on the island. He then sent a voice transmission to summon the 2 to his cave abode. While the 2 were walking, Lu Ping opened the 1000-bell millet to check his harvest for the past 6 months. He saw a group of amethyst bees rebuilding their nest. Only then did Lu Ping notice that the swarm of amethyst bees had grown to the size of an egg. More than 200 amethyst bees had all reached the 2nd layer of blood refining realm. The leading amethyst bees had broken through to the 3rd layer. They were only one step away from the birth of a queen bee. Under the peach tree in the middle of the 1,000-bell millet, a pile of shining spirit stones was neatly stacked into several piles. Among them, there were 15 piles of low-grade spirit stones. Each pile was 100,000 spirit stones. There were 5 piles of mid-grade spirit stones. Each pile was 2,000 spirit stones. In total, there were 2 million spirit stones. Lu Ping was dumbfounded. Wasn't it a bit too harsh? However, he and his 6 spiritual pets still spent half of their time on cultivation every day. After all, although the concentration of spiritual energy in the spirit mine was not as high as that of a mid-grade spirit vein, it was not too far off from a small-grade spirit vein. Of course, Lu Ping did not include the 50 high-grade spirit stones in his storage ring. At this time, Wu Yin and Hong Ying had already entered the cultivation room. When Wu Yin saw Lu Ping, she happily said, "Young master, you're finally back." During this period of time, the Three-Island Alliance has been in a precarious situation, which directly affected the 27 outer islands. Without young master, our 3 islands have lost their backbone. Although Hong Ying did not show his emotions on his face like Wu Yin, his expression also looked a lot more relaxed. It was obvious that these days had not been easy for them. Chapter 251. This time, Lu Ping used the 1,000 spiritual wine to serve them. Lu Ping originally planned to use 500-year-old spiritual herbs to brew a new 100 spiritual wine, but he couldn't bear to do so. During this trip to the Nameless Island, Lu Ping had concocted many pills for the Blue Phoenix and Samling, so he had used up most of the spiritual herbs he had. So, he could only use the 1,000 spiritual wine brewed from hundreds of century-old spiritual herbs to serve them. Hong Ying drank half of the cup of 1,000 spiritual wine. As soon as the wine entered his stomach, it turned into pure spiritual energy and quickly merged with his arcane energy, causing his arcane energy to surge violently. Hong Ying shouted, "This is really good wine." Wu Yin seemed to be a little drunk. She drank a mouthful of 1,000 spiritual wine, and her face turned slightly red. Lu Ping took out 2 large gourds and placed them on the wooden table. This 1,000 spiritual wine is very useful for blood condensation cultivators to recover their spiritual energy quickly. Although it is not as good as spirit recovery pills, it is much cheaper. I noticed that the Fallen Secret Land is not peaceful recently. Distribute these 2 gourds of 1,000 spiritual wine to the mid-blood condensation cultivators. If they are in danger, they will have a backup plan. Wu Yin took the 2 gourds of 1,000 spiritual wine. These 2 gourds were the last of Lu Ping's stock. The spiritual energy in the wine was negligible to Lu Ping, but for the mid-blood condensation cultivators, it might be a life-saving measure. Lu Ping turned to Hong Ying and asked, "What happened in the Fallen Secret Land in the past half a year? Why didn't I see Yi Buki on the island?" Hong Ying pondered for a moment, as if he was organizing his words. Then, he said, "Young lord, the alliance of the 3 clans is about to collapse. I'm afraid the 27 outer islands will be affected as well. Qi Lianying has already escaped. Her 5 islands are now occupied by other cultivators who have entered the Fallen Secret Land." Lu Ping wasn't surprised at all. What happened half a year ago? Hong Ying pondered for a moment, then said, "It's hard to believe. Half a year ago, someone who claimed to be a disciple of the Wang family was rescued by Qi Lianying. He claimed that the cultivators of the Crystal Palace occupied the Nameless Island in the middle of the Arcane Realm because they had already discovered a medium-sized spirit stone mine there. Their choice to cooperate with the Wang family was just to find a legitimate excuse to enter the Northern Alliance's territory. When the news spread out, many of them did not believe it. Due to that, the Wang family simply announced that they were expelling him from the Wang family. However, the news quickly spread through the Fallen Pocket Zone. Additionally, there were many different versions of the story. Even the cultivators outside the Fallen Pocket Zone found out that the Crystal Palace was preparing to plunder a mid-sized spirit mine belonging to the Northern Alliance. The Crystal Palace repeatedly said that it was just a rumor, but there were still cultivators who tried to take the risk to investigate the Nameless Island. However, they were quickly discovered and killed by the cultivators of the Crystal Palace. Not only did the Crystal Palace's ruthless methods not work, but the Crystal Palace's strict defense of the nameless island seemed to prove that the rumor was true. At that moment, the cultivators of the Crystal Palace, led by a perfected cultivator of the core forging realm, suddenly attacked Flying Rainbow Island, where Qi Lianying was, and the other 4 islands that she occupied. However, they found that the 5 islands were empty, and Qi Lianying was nowhere to be seen. The Crystal Palace quickly issued an arrest warrant for Qi Lianying in the East Sea. A perfected cultivator of the Crystal Palace received a secret report and intercepted Qi Lianying, who was hiding in a sea area outside the Fallen Pocket Zone. However, after fighting for a while, the perfected cultivator couldn't do anything to the female cultivator at the peak of the blood condensation realm. Qi Lianying escaped from his hands and disappeared. This battle made Qi Lianying famous in the territory of the Northern Alliance. It seemed to have overturned the invincible image of the Crystal Palace in the hearts of the cultivators of the East Sea. More and more cultivators swarmed into the sea area of the 3 families and appeared around the nameless island. At the same time, they appealed to the Northern Alliance to uphold justice. After all, the nameless island was within the territory of the 3 families and was under the protection of the Northern Alliance. Now, the Crystal Palace was like a dragon crossing the river, but they were targeting the local snake of the Northern Alliance. This was something that the cultivators of the Northern Alliance couldn't tolerate. The Wang family finally realized that the cultivators of the Crystal Palace obviously had an ulterior motive for getting close to the Wang family. They were secretly planning to sell the mineral vein. Once the Crystal Palace monopolized the mineral vein, the Wang family would definitely be the first target for the Northern Alliance to vent their anger. At that time, the Crystal Palace would probably push the Wang family out as a scapegoat. After the Wang family woke up, they quickly sent perfected Wang Hua to question the perfected Kunshin of the Crystal Palace about whether there was a mineral vein on the nameless island. If it was a false rumor, they should contact all forces to check the island as soon as possible and clarify the truth. The Wang family's betrayal showed the cultivators of the Northern Alliance that they had been deceived and allowed the Wang family to return to the arms of the Northern Alliance. However, the Crystal Palace was caught unprepared. With the Wang family taking the lead, the Zhang family, who had always been the spokesperson of the Northern Alliance, together with the Li family, proposed to the Crystal Palace that they should withdraw from the nameless island and the 3 forces should cooperate to investigate the mineral vein thoroughly. Then, all the forces of the Northern Alliance asked the Crystal Palace to withdraw from the occupied Northern Alliance islands. Then, the Northern Alliance formally negotiated with the Crystal Palace, asking for a thorough investigation of the medium-sized mineral vein on the nameless island. They would send perfected cultivators in the core forging realm to the island to take charge of this matter. The 2 giants of Donghai finally began to confront each other head-on. However, this was the hinterland of the Northern Alliance after all. The Northern Alliance had the geographical advantage. Although the Crystal Palace was powerful, several other forces in Donghai also followed the request of the Northern Alliance. The Crystal Palace could not do anything alone. In the end, they retreated and admitted that they had accidentally discovered the medium-sized mineral vein on the nameless island, but denied that it was a deliberate plot. At this point, the incident had come to an end. As for whether the Crystal Palace had accidentally discovered it or a deliberate plot, every practitioner naturally knew clearly in their hearts. The ending incident was about the distribution of the spiritual stones after the mining of the mineral vein. The Northern Alliance naturally took the majority, followed by the Crystal Palace. All the forces were beating the drum loudly. Of course, they also wanted to share the benefits. With the intervention of the Northern Alliance, the arrangement of the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking matrix was naturally fast. It was completed in only half a year, and the matrix began to be activated. However, they did not expect that a practitioner had already sneaked into the mineral vein, dug out millions of spiritual stones from one of the mineral veins, and escaped when the perfected cultivators were busy activating the matrix. Now the practitioners in the fallen secret land were most concerned about 2 things. One was whether Qi Lianying could continue to escape from the arrest of the Crystal Palace. The other was how many spiritual stones the mysterious practitioner had stolen from the mineral vein. After listening to Red Eagle's narration, Lu Ping frowned and thought for a while. It seemed that this time the Crystal Palace should have fallen into a trap. Qi Lianying could escape from the pursuit of a perfected cultivator in the core forging realm perhaps because she was really powerful. However, it was impossible for her to escape from the pursuit of the Crystal Palace without a huge force behind her to cover her tracks. In addition to the rumors, it was obvious that someone was behind all this. However, Lu Ping didn't know how this faction discovered the mid-sized spirit mine on the Nameless Island. He didn't think that this faction would use a mid-sized spirit mine in advance to set up a trap that could at most annoy the Crystal Palace, but wouldn't be able to hurt the Crystal Palace. Lu Ping suddenly thought of the Li family. There should be a mysterious force behind this family. During the underground trade fair on Sanjia Island, through the mysterious female alchemist Chu Ting, they schemed against the Crystal Palace and expelled the practitioners of the Crystal Palace from the island. Moreover, by chance, Lu Ping also knew that the Li family and the Crystal Palace had a lot of hatred. When Lu Ping first arrived at the East Sea, the practitioners in a secret stronghold of the Crystal Palace were all killed by Li Xiuzhu, the eldest daughter of the Li family. Young master, seeing that Lu Ping was thinking about something, Red Eagle could not help but remind him. After the incident with Qi Lianying, the three families' alliance has now strengthened the management of the 27 outer islands, especially the Wang family. Not only did they offer more offerings, but they are also preparing to reorganize the forces for their own use. They are lobbying everywhere. Lu Ping said indifferently, the Wang family is afraid. This time, in order to protect the family, the Wang family attacked the Crystal Palace, but they also did not please the Northern Alliance. Now the Wang family is in a difficult situation. What they are most afraid of is the Zhang family and the Li family working together to suppress them. The Zhang family and the Li family will not sit by and do nothing since they are so eager to gather their forces. Red Eagle said again. After Qi Lianying left, the 5 islands became empty, causing many forces to fight for them. Many practitioners who have just entered the fallen secret land also joined in. The outer islands are in chaos now. Yi Buki and his brothers are always outside to patrol the 3 islands, in case someone is plotting against them. Lu Ping's eyes narrowed. Someone is plotting against us? Red Eagle said hesitantly. I'm not sure yet, but there are indeed a few practitioners who have not yet established a foothold near Hearing Waves Island, Red Shadow Island, and Sunglow Island. It is better to be safe than sorry. Lu Ping chuckled coldly and didn't say anything else. Red Eagle was also a person who had experienced life and death. Just when Lu Ping sneered, he clearly felt a bone-chilling coldness from Lu Ping. Red Eagle's heart trembled. How many people must have died in his hands to form such a strong evil qi? When night fell, Yi Buki returned from patrolling the islands. Lu Ping inadvertently asked him about the practitioners who had just entered the fallen secret land. Which of them were spying on Hearing Waves Island, Red Shadow Island, and Sunglow Island? After getting the answer, Lu Ping didn't say anything more. He went back to his cave residence to cultivate. In the darkness of the night, he could vaguely hear the crisp chirping of birds and the rustling sound, as if a breeze was blowing the green grass. The next day, after patrolling the islands, Yi Buki reported to Lu Ping. Last night, several groups of foreign forces were attacked by demonic beasts. The leaders of those groups were all killed. One had his head smashed, one had his heart torn, and 3 seemed to have been poisoned to death. One's whole body was frozen and would shatter at the slightest touch. One's whole body was rotten beyond recognition. The last one's bones and flesh were separated and became soft. Chapter 252. The mysterious deaths of the 5 leaders had startled all the forces on the outer islands. They had all calmed down, and the 27 outer islands seemed to have returned to their former tranquility. Hong Ying looked at Lu Ping with more respect. He wondered how many more trump cards this young lord had up his sleeves. Yi Buki didn't say anything, which made the Red Eagle secretly exclaim that Yi Buki's temperament was higher than his. However, he didn't know that Yi Buki had already become immune to these things after seeing more shocking things. The day of the Northern Alliance Elixir meeting was getting closer and closer. Lu Ping arranged for Yi Buki and his brothers to look after his home, while he took only the Red Eagle and Wu Yin with him and set out for Heaven Yuan City. There was no teleportation formation in the fallen secret area to Heaven Yuan City, so the Red Eagle suggested that the three of them should first go to a city on a medium-sized island. Every island of the Northern Alliance had a teleportation formation that was connected to Heaven Yuan City. They only needed to pay some spirit stones, and they would be able to reach Heaven Yuan City quickly. However, Lu Ping didn't agree. After he had arrived at the East Sea, he had only traveled near the three cities and the fallen secret area. He hadn't enjoyed the scenery of the East Sea, so he insisted on flying to Heaven Yuan City on his flying device. The Red Eagle and Wu Yin naturally didn't dare to argue with him. The three of them drove their flying devices and enjoyed the scenery of the East Sea along the way. With the Red Eagle as an experienced horse, Lu Ping had a good time on the way. After 10 days, the scenery along the way had opened up Lu Ping's mind. He couldn't help but let out a long whistle. The sound waves spread out, and the calm sea of the East Sea was suddenly covered with countless waves, as if they were responding to his whistle. Every time a wave flew up, Lu Ping stretched out his hand and pointed at it. The wave suddenly turned into a sparkling water sword, or like a fish in the water, full of natural intelligence, dancing on the surface of the sea. 324 waves rose in a row, forming 324 running and playing swordfish on the surface of the sea. Sometimes they gathered on the surface of the sea, and sometimes they fled. They were having a lot of fun. Wu Yin did not know the meaning behind it, only feeling that it was miraculous. Hong Ying, on the other hand, had a mixture of shock and perplexity on his face. He knew that Lu Ping was displaying an extremely profound sword technique, and this sword technique was most likely related to the legendary sword intent. However, as for the specifics, he did not know. Red Eagle shook his head with a bitter smile. Back then, he had unintentionally comprehended force, and after gradually understanding and grasping force, he could be considered an expert among his fellow rogue cultivators. And this young man in front of him, who knew how much younger than him, had clearly comprehended concept to an extremely high level. This also strengthened Red Eagle's determination to follow Lu Ping even more. 324 psychic sword lights. Lu Ping smiled slightly in his heart. His sword technique had improved by another level. Lu Ping loosened his hands, and the frolicking swordfish on the surface of the sea jumped into the sea and disappeared. Lu Ping clapped his hands, turned around and said with a smile, "Let's go." The three of them each had their own thoughts. After a moment, Lu Ping suddenly stopped on the surface of the sea. Red Eagle and Wu Yin did not know what was going on, so they also stopped. Lu Ping muttered to himself for a moment, then turned around and said, "Red Eagle, Wu Yin, the two of you go first. Wait for me at Xinyuan City's listening sound building. I met an interesting person, so I'll go take a look first." Red Eagle and Wu Yin wanted to say something, but Lu Ping smiled and said, "Don't worry, wait for me in the city. I'll be there in a day or two at most." The two of them were helpless. They knew that if Lu Ping really had something to do, the two of them would most likely not be able to help. They could only say, "Be careful." The two of them left first. Seeing that the two of them had gone far away, Lu Ping's expression became slightly more serious. He turned around and flew towards the sea in the west. In the sky a few miles away from where Lu Ping and Red Eagle parted ways, a battle was in full swing. A red-robed core forging enlightened master was chasing and attacking a green-robed woman. The woman tried her best to defend herself, but she was only at the peak of the blood condensation realm. Under the red-robed Taoist's attacks, she was in a difficult position. She could only defend but not fight back. "Haha, Qi Lianying, didn't you say that you could escape from a core forging enlightened master? Why aren't you running? Why aren't you running? Today, I will capture you and let you know the prestige of the Crystal Palace. No one has ever escaped from the Crystal Palace's punishment. Let's see your stinking fart." The green-robed girl, Qi Lianying, was very fierce. Her first words made Lu Ping, who was hiding in the distance, look at her in a new light. "If it weren't for the fact that I was in a hurry and fell into your trap due to my carelessness, do you think you could stop me with your core forging stage cultivation? Hee, what do you mean by trap? Your enemy recognizes you, but you don't recognize your enemy. You deserve to be injured by my palm. Do you think I have to jump in front of you and say, I am the Crystal Palace's Hong Shirkuei, and I want to capture you right now? Then I'm the one who's crazy. Hong Shirkuei had the upper hand, so he was not in a hurry. He only used the 2 jade rings. One emitted rings of fire, while the other emitted rings of ice. The ice and fire rings flew towards Qi Lianying one after another. Once there were too many of them, she would not be able to break them in time and would be trapped inside. Hong Shirkuei had made up his mind to capture Qi Lianying alive. Qi Lianying used 2 sleeves, one green and the other red. As she waved them, they looked like 2 spiritual snakes. Even Hong Shirkuei was a little afraid of them. Qi Lianying, as long as you surrender and tell us who the mastermind is, I, Hong Shirkuei, can guarantee that our sect will spare your life. What do you think? Hong Shirkuei tried to break Qi Lianying's will to fight with words after failing to do so. Hee, if you spare my life, will I serve you in the future? Qi Lianying was already covered in sweat, but she still joked without hesitation. That's not necessarily impossible as long as you tell me who the mastermind is. Hong Shirkuei naturally wouldn't take it seriously and just sneered. What do you mean? I am just a guest behind the scenes, a servant under your skirt. Why would I need someone to order me around? Qi Lianying was as fierce as ever. Then don't blame me for being rude. Hong Shirkuei was not easy to deal with. He had already prepared a set of killer moves while he was talking. Ice and fire rings, chilling and hot 9 heavens. Hong Shirkuei shook his hands, and 3 rings flew out from each of the ice and fire rings. Each ring suddenly fused together, but strangely, there was no repulsion between them. The combined ice and fire rings had already flown above Qi Lianying's head, trying to trap her. Snake dance. Qi Lianying's face was solemn. Her green and red sleeves flew out like 2 slithering spiritual snakes. After one attack, she retreated and waited for an opportunity to strike again, blocking the ice and fire rings above her head. Suddenly, Qi Lianying's face changed, and she shouted, "Oh no!" Her sleeves fluttered in the wind as she tried to protect herself. However, the ring of ice and fire above her head suddenly exploded. Most of the scattered ice and fire Jinyuan was blocked by Qi Lianying, but some still managed to hit her body. Her hair was immediately disheveled, and she was in a sorry state. Qi Lianying shouted, "Hong Shirkuei, I want you to die a horrible death. Hee, you have no chance." Hong Shirkuei pointed his finger, and the 2 ice and fire rings flew toward Qi Lianying again. Qi Lianying's face was pale, and her face was full of despair. At this time, a magnificent golden sword Qi suddenly appeared in the sky. In the body of the sword Qi, countless sword Qi swam back and forth like fish, but it also emitted a strong, sharp Qi. True essence 1 sword Qi. Chapter 253. Unity of Practice and Sword. Hong Shirkuei turned pale with fright. The magnificent sword Qi had already smashed the 2 ice and fire rings, and the sword Qi had also collapsed. The aftermath did not stop, and countless fine sword Qi directly shot toward Hong Shirkuei. Hong Shirkuei's face was as serious as dripping water. The ice ring in his left hand flew over his head, and a white ice wall hung down. The psychic sword Qi hit the ice wall, and in a moment, the ice wall was smashed, and the psychic sword Qi was also destroyed. May I ask which Taoism fellow cultivator wants to interfere in the affairs of the Crystal Palace? This person is the wanted criminal of the Crystal Palace, Qi Lianying. If you leave now, the Crystal Palace will let bygones be bygones. A cultivator with an indistinct face, who seemed to be covered by an invisible veil, was standing on a white cloud and slowly approaching. A golden flying sword was hovering above his head, like a naughty fish playing silently in the water. Obviously, Hong Shirkuei's words did not have the desired effect. The cultivator on the white cloud casually made a sword spell, and the golden flying sword shook above his head, suddenly becoming 180 feet long. The huge sword rose into the sky and followed the cultivator's finger, directly chopping toward Hong Shirkuei. Law Phenomenon Skill. This is a magic treasure. You are a perfected cultivator of the core forging stage. Hong Shirkuei screamed, and then said, "No, no, Your Dharma power has not transformed into the genuine essence, and you have not reached the core forging stage. How can you use the law phenomenon skill? Hong Shirkue, who had a strange look on his face, naturally knew how powerful it was. He had just reached the core forging stage, and his cultivation had not been consolidated yet, so he could not fully exert the strength of the core forging stage. Seeing the flying sword coming, he had to temporarily avoid it. The person was Lu Ping, who came on a magic cloud. With Lu Ping's help, Qi Lianing narrowly escaped death. Just as she was about to yell at Hong Shirkue, her pale face suddenly turned red. She could no longer control herself and spat out a mouthful of blood. After Qi Lianing was injured by Hong Shirkue's palm, she fought against Hong Shirkue with all her might, not daring to show the slightest sign of injury. However, after receiving such a strong support, she could no longer control the injury in her body. After spurting out blood, she seemed to have lost half of her spirit. Her two fluttering sleeves also seemed to have lost their spirituality. She could only barely control them, cooperating with Lu Ping to attack Hong Shirkue from the side. Who are you? Ever since Hong Shirkue advanced to the core forging stage, he had returned from the North Sea in defeat. The frustration of being demoted to the Northern Alliance's territory by the sect had been swept away. Now that he had regained the sect's recognition and importance, he was in high spirits. His luck seemed to have improved with the improvement of his cultivation. An ordinary letter delivery mission had led him to encounter Qi Lianing, a wanted criminal of the sect. Hong Shirkue, who was eager to contribute to the sect, had everything going smoothly. After Qi Lianing was injured by him, he had lost the chance to escape and could only put up a desperate fight. It was only a matter of time before he failed. Hong Shirkue suddenly felt the sect's appreciation and respect for him. However, Lu Ping's appearance was like a hammer to his head. He never thought that one day, after he advanced to the core forging stage, he would be completely defeated by a blood condensation stage cultivator. In addition, Qi Lianing, who was seriously injured but still had some strength left, was causing trouble for him. Hong Shirkue's battle with the two peak blood condensation stage cultivators was becoming more and more dangerous. This is absolutely impossible. Hong Shirkue looked at the cultivator in front of him, who was deliberately concealing his appearance. Every time he tried to use his divine sense to uncover the cultivator's true appearance, there would always be a layer of power that seemed to be both divine sense and divine sense blocking his divine sense. At the same time, the cultivator's aura was extremely strange. It was chaotic and irregular, so Hong Shirkue's divine sense couldn't completely grasp it. That's right, this person must be a core forging stage cultivator. He just used a special technique to conceal his appearance and cultivation. Otherwise, how could a blood condensation stage cultivator block his divine sense and force him into such a predicament? Moreover, Hong Shirkue was quite familiar with the cultivator's ability to change his secret technique. After pondering for a while, he suddenly remembered that when he was the Hall Master of the North Sea Overturned Sea Gang, he once heard a cultivator from the Chiu family of Chiu Yun Island talking about the various sects in the North Sea. When they talked about the Sea Flame sect, they mentioned that the sect had a magical artifact called the Mirage Gauze Robe. When worn by a cultivator, it could make the cultivator's aura ethereal, making it very difficult to detect. Wasn't this cultivator using the Mirage Gauze Robe? This person is a cultivator from the Sea Flame sect of the North Sea. Hong Shirkue was certain that he had succeeded in his plan. He didn't dare to expose the opponent's identity because he was at a disadvantage now. However, in a fight between cultivators of the same level, even if he couldn't win, he could still escape. Hong Shirkue didn't think that the two in front of him could stop him if he wanted to escape. However, once he exposed the opponent's identity, the cultivator from the Sea Flame sect would definitely fight to the death with Hong Shirkue to protect his sect from being destroyed by the powerful power of the Crystal Palace. Sea Flame sect? In the eyes of the East Sea, this was at most a neutral sect. How dare they offend the Crystal Palace? Hong Shirkue spread out his divine thoughts. While dealing with the attacks from Lu Ping and Qi Lianing, he looked around, looking for an opportunity to escape. When he returned, he must report to the higher-ups of his sect about the Sea Flame sect. He must let the North Sea overturned sea gang take revenge on the Sea Flame sect. After the beast tide of the North Sea, the sea overturned sea gang was strangely hit by the main force of the beast tide. 2 of the 4 perfected masters of Chio Yun Island were killed, and 1 was seriously injured. However, with the power of the Crystal Palace, the sects in the North Sea wouldn't dare to do anything to the sea overturned sea gang. Hong Shikue was multitasking. How could he escape from Lu Ping's eyes? Just as Hong Shikue found an opportunity and dodged Lu Ping's golden scale sword, the 2 jade bracelets collided. With a crisp ding, 2 waves of snow and a sea of fire erupted and surged toward Qi Lianying. Qi Lianying's expression changed. She quickly dodged, but she didn't expect the snow wave and the sea of fire, one hot and one cold, to collide. Suddenly, a vast power erupted. Qi Lianying's sleeves danced. At the same time, the green and red gauze on her body also spat out a green and red shield, wrapping Qi Lianying inside. The gauze on her body was actually a top-tier defensive celestial treasure. Qi Lianying hurriedly looked for Hong Shikue. However, after the snow and fire collided, a white mist was formed on the surface of the sea, blocking Qi Lianying's vision. Hong Shikue was nowhere to be seen. Qi Lianying rolled up her sleeves and drew a circle in the air. Then, she shook it outward, and the thick mist immediately dispersed in all directions. She just happened to see Hong Shikue's feet flashing with green and red light. He had already escaped in the direction where she was previously. Qi Lianying couldn't catch up with him. Don't let him escape. Qi Lianying was anxious. Chapter 254. Don't let him get away. Qi Lianying shouted subconsciously, but then she remembered that Lu Ping wasn't someone she could yell at. If she yelled at him like that, he might even feel annoyed. Qi Lianying looked at Lu Ping with an apologetic and pleading look, but she found that although Lu Ping did not show any displeasure, he did not say anything further. She could not help but feel a little disappointed. At this moment, Hong Shikue, who was running away, suddenly stopped and quickly turned his head to the side to dodge. A flying sword suddenly appeared in front of Hong Shikue out of thin air. It suddenly flashed with a cold light and slashed at Hong Shikue's neck. Shapeless sword technique. Hong Shikue, who thought that he could escape, was not prepared at all. Although he managed to avoid being hit in the vital parts, one of his ears was cut off by the invisible flying sword. Hong Shikue screamed in pain, but Qi Lianying was overjoyed. She rushed forward recklessly, her sleeves fluttering as if she was dancing. However, every time she swung her sleeves, they went straight for Hong Shikue's vital parts, entangling him tightly. She looked like she was going all out. Although Lu Ping did not know why Qi Lianying wanted to kill Hong Shikue, he knew that even if Lu Ping and Qi Lianying joined forces, they might not be able to kill a core-forging perfected master unless Lu Ping used his natal gentian formation. Since Lu Ping had saved Qi Lianying, he naturally had his own plans. He would not let her fall into danger again. Therefore, the golden scale sword circled around like a fish jumping into the sea. Perhaps Qi Lianying still had some trump cards up her sleeves. The one Hong Shikue was truly afraid of was still Lu Ping. This was the reason why he was so anxious to escape. However, this crazy woman in front of him was pestering him relentlessly, and her attacks were not weak either. It was difficult for Hong Shikue to get rid of her for a while. Right at this moment, Hong Shikue's spiritual will sensed a great danger coming from the seawater beneath his feet. Hong Shikue flicked out a crystal shield and allowed Qi Lianying to attack him, but he held the ice and fire bracelets tightly in his hands as he looked at the bottom of the sea with a grave expression. The surface of the sea suddenly broke open, and a single-horned golden flood dragon suddenly broke out of the water, pouncing at Hong Shikue with its claws and fangs bared. The power of the horn transformed from the golden scale sword on its head was clearly far above that of the Qing Han sword. In addition to the 9 psychic sword lights in its eyes and 4 claws, the golden flood dragon also had 72 glittering psychic sword teeth in its mouth, and the remaining 36 psychic sword lights formed a sword-shaped mark near its throat. Due to the improvement of the golden scale sword and Lu Ping's swordsmanship, the power of the green flood dragon disturbing the sea sword art was incomparable to before. Hong Shirkuei naturally knew how powerful it was. The ice and fire bracelets slowly stacked together in his hands. Then, Hong Shirkuei pressed hard, and the two jade bracelets were forcibly fused into a new jade bracelet. Then, a white flame suddenly ignited on the body of the jade bracelet. The flame jumped in the void and strangely condensed the water vapor in the air into a layer of ice in the shape of a flame. The jade bracelet rose into the air and wrapped around the golden flood dragon. Lu Ping naturally sensed the strangeness of the jade bracelet. Lu Ping's divine sense swept over it, and the flame on the jade bracelet suddenly rose, as if it was burning and freezing Lu Ping's divine sense. Lu Ping only felt a strange cold, but it gave people a burning feeling. He felt a stabbing pain in his divine sense, and a wisp of divine sense suddenly disappeared. Lu Ping did not dare to be careless. The golden flood dragon continued to attack the jade bracelet. Every time it attacked, dozens of sword lights peeled off from the golden flood dragon's body, turning into drops of flame-shaped ice beads that fell into the sea, making a chi-chi sound and then rising white smoke. Lu Ping's golden flood dragon became smaller and smaller. Although Hong Shirkuei's jade bracelet was powerful, it was obviously a difficult method to control. Sure enough, Lu Ping saw that every time the golden flood dragon attacked the jade bracelet, the golden flood dragon would be injured, and Hong Shirkuei's face would change again and again with each attack of the golden flood dragon. Obviously, it was not easy. The jade bracelet finally wrapped around the golden flood dragon's neck, and it became tighter and tighter. The golden flood dragon struggled a few times, and its whole body disintegrated. But at this moment, 36 psychic sword lights suddenly pierced out from the neck of the golden flood dragon that was beginning to collapse, and the jade bracelet suddenly stopped. Then, the horn turned back into the golden scale sword and suddenly slashed. With a crisp dang, the golden scale sword flew back, but the jade bracelet was broken by the golden scale sword again, turning into two. The white flame on it flashed and finally disappeared. Hong Shirkuei's face first turned white, then red, and he suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Lu Ping with eyes full of fear and hatred. Lu Ping did not have it easy either. The golden scale sword had relied on the quality of its own magic treasure. Although it had broken up the fused ice and fire bracelets, the moment the two collided, the strange flame suddenly burned away the transcendence energy contained in the sword. Moreover, the golden scale sword was a magic treasure after all. It was meticulously refined by Taoist Jinli, and it was a magic treasure with room for improvement. The transcendence energy consumed to use this magic treasure was indeed a burden for Lu Ping. On the other side, Qi Lianying finally took advantage of the opportunity when Hong Shirkuei was seriously injured by Lu Ping again. She knocked away the crystal shield in front of her, then raised her hand and threw a small golden snake straight at Qi Lianying's face. Golden thread snake. Hong Shirkuei's divine sense transformed into a huge white hand with a ball of fire burning in its palm. He slapped the golden snake away, but his eyes were wandering and his divine sense was also spreading out, as if he was guarding against something. Sure enough, a silver thread appeared behind Hong Shirkuei, biting at his back. Hong Shirkuei was already prepared. He crossed his bracelets, and an ice blade emitting flames cut at the silver thread. However, there was a flash of golden light. At some point, the golden thread snake that had been slapped away suddenly appeared nearby. It swept its tail and shattered the ice blade. However, the golden thread snake's golden tail suddenly stiffened. Although a white flame flashed on the tail, the golden thread snake's golden head swayed left and right, hissing. It was obvious that it had just suffered a great loss. The silver thread had already taken the opportunity to pounce in front of Hong Shirkuei, biting the back of his hand. Hong Shirkuei's protective upstanding qi did not have the slightest effect on him. Hong Shirkuei's expression changed drastically, but he did not think twice. He summoned the ice jade bracelet and knocked it against his left hand. His left hand and wrist turned into ice chips and fell, leaving only the wound frozen, without a drop of blood. At this moment, the top-grade flying sword that attacked Hong Shirkuei earlier suddenly appeared next to him again. Hong Shirkuei could not dodge in time, and blood bloomed from his waist again. Golden thread, silver thread snake? I didn't expect Qi Lianying to have such a strange beast. Lu Ping looked at the two little snakes that were circling in front of Qi Lianying with a strange light in his eyes. He wondered how these two little snakes were compared to his green sea snake. The golden thread, silver thread snake usually appeared in pairs. The golden thread snake was as hard as iron and extremely difficult to kill. Some people had seen a golden thread snake survive after being hit by a magic weapon. The silver thread snake was a master of sneak attacks. Its figure was extremely difficult to be discovered, and it could ignore the protective upstanding chi of a practitioner. Its snake venom was extremely vicious. It was said that even Dharma form Laozu would have to spend a lot of effort to be bitten by it. The venom of the silver thread snake was far above that of the green sea snake. However, since Samling absorbed and integrated the golden meteorite aura in the golden canyon of Seven Stars Heaven, its venom may not be weaker than the venom of the silver thread snake. It might even be a level higher. Are you two completely sure that you can keep me here? At worst, you will die together with me. At that time, you and the people behind you will all suffer the merciless revenge of the Crystal Palace. Hong Shirkue was injured again and again, but he became ruthless. Qi Lianying snorted coldly and said, "You should have been prepared to die long ago. In this world, only the Crystal Palace can kill people, but others can't kill the practitioners of the Crystal Palace. Is this the principle of the Crystal Palace?" Lu Ping stretched out his hand and waved. A flying sword shining with a cold light suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping held it in his hand and carefully felt the characteristics of this flying sword. He was quite satisfied. This was the top-grade flying sword Lu Ping obtained from the practitioner of the Crystal Palace who was killed in the Land of 100 Flowers. It was called Serene Water. The Serene Water sword itself was a sword that could be used for assassination. After Lu Ping obtained it, he used it to perform the shapeless sword technique. It complemented each other perfectly. With one move, he obtained an ear of a perfected cultivator in the core forging realm. Lu Ping waved his hand, and the Serene Water sword suddenly disappeared beside him. Hong Shirkue felt a chill in his heart. Hong Shirkue had experienced the ability of the Serene Water sword twice in a row. He could not help but focus all his attention on the void around him. At this moment, Qi Lianying suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood again. When Lu Ping turned his head, he saw a huge pair of scissors rising above Qi Lianying's head. The two long blades on the scissors closed together, and half of Hong Shirkue's shoulder was suddenly separated from his body. Magic weapon. You actually have a magic weapon too. The horrified Hong Shirkue lost the slightest will to fight. With the help of the blood, he used the blood escape technique and tried to escape. Qi Lianying's hands, which were controlling the scissors with great difficulty, formed a seal with great difficulty. The scissors suddenly opened and closed above her head again. Hong Shirkue, who was just about to use the blood escape technique, screamed again. The blood escape technique was broken, and he was cut in half from the waist down by the scissors. Lu Ping, who was watching from the side, also felt a chill in his heart. The power of this pair of scissors was far greater than that of the pestle with 2 talisman treasures carved on it. Perhaps the 2 talisman treasures carved on it were different. Hong Shirkue's upper body suddenly exploded, and a gloomy golden pill that was about to collapse jumped out from his heart. 2 jade bracelets, one above and the other below, protected the golden pill in the middle and continued to escape. At this time, Qi Lianying was already exhausted. How could she stop the golden pill? She could only look pleadingly at Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled and pointed a finger. Suddenly, a huge silver jade seal descended from the sky. With a loud bang, the jade bracelets had already lost the support of their magic power and were sent flying by the landslide. Before the golden pill was hit by the landslide, it disintegrated in the air and turned into a ball of extremely dense spirit chi, which then spread in the air. Chapter 255. The 2 jade bracelets that were knocked away were suddenly shaken by 2 rays of golden light. The jade bracelets suddenly stopped in the air, and 2 giant palms rose from the sea, grabbing the jade bracelets and flying toward Lu Ping. Although Qi Lianying also coveted the 2 jade bracelets, her mana was depleted, and it was difficult for her to even stand. She could only watch as Lu Ping played with the jade bracelets in his hands. Lu Ping turned his head and smiled at Qi Lianying. Qi Lianying knew that her thoughts had been seen through by Lu Ping, but she did not feel embarrassed. She rolled her eyes at him. Lu Ping laughed at himself and threw a jade bottle to Qi Lianying. Qi Lianying took the jade bottle, uncorked it, and poured out a medicinal pill. She did not even look at it and swallowed it. "Aren't you worried? Aren't you afraid that it is poison?" Lu Ping asked with a chuckle. Qi Lianying looked at him with disdain and giggled. "You saved me and then killed me? Could it be that this old lady's brain is broken like yours?" Lu Ping smiled wickedly and said, "Maybe it is aphrodisiac." Qi Lianying still giggled happily. "Then I have no choice. I will have to obey you. Let us be a couple, and the scenery of the East Sea will not be in vain." Lu Ping laughed dryly. He could not handle this situation, and he was really no match for this woman. He could only focus on the 2 jade bracelets in his hands. Qi Lianying saw that Lu Ping was embarrassed, and she laughed like a victorious hen. She looked at Lu Ping with colorful eyes. Lu Ping coughed and said without looking up, "If I were you, I would take advantage of the medicinal pill to heal my wounds. Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you if you forcefully use the mystic treasures and damage your foundation." Qi Lianying glanced at Lu Ping seductively and said, "Don't leave me alone while I'm recuperating." Lu Ping knew that the more you provoked this woman, the more excited she would be. Lu Ping closed his eyes and completely ignored her. Qi Lianying looked at Lu Ping and giggled. Then, she sat on the sea and began to suppress her internal injuries. Lu Ping guarded her while trying to figure out how to use the 2 jade bracelets. With the jade bracelets in hand, Lu Ping knew that he had found a treasure. 2 jade bracelets, 1 ice and 1 fire. Lu Ping could tell at a glance that the spirit materials used to forge the ice bracelets were the 1,000-year chilling ice jade. This was a type of 2nd-grade mutated spiritual material. Lu Ping also had a top-grade mystic treasure made from this jade. It was a gift from his 2nd senior apprentice sister, Li Xuanru. He had asked Chanlian's father to make it into a top-grade jade pendant, which he could carry around with him to aid his cultivation. On the broad back of the Blue Phoenix, Lu Ping and Qi Lianying sat facing each other. Qi Lianying's complexion had improved a lot. It was obvious that her injuries were completely under control. However, flying on a mystic treasure was still very inconvenient. So Lu Ping had to call Lu Qin out from the spirit beast pouch and carry the 2 of them in the direction of Qinyuan City. What a coincidence. You're also going to Qinyuan City? There are many people there. Aren't you afraid of being seen and reported to the Crystal Palace? Lu Ping asked casually. Qinyuan City is the headquarters of the Northern Alliance. Naturally, they won't allow the Crystal Palace to behave atrociously in the city. However, I have my own plans. When the time comes, no one will recognize me, so you don't have to be so concerned about me, Qi Lianying said nonchalantly. By the way, why are you so determined to kill that Hong Shikue? After all, he is a core forging enlightened master. If you don't handle it well, both of you will be injured. Lu Ping asked curiously. You want to run after taking advantage of me? Not even the Crystal Palace. Even if I die, I will take a bite out of them. Lu Ping saw that she didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't ask anymore. Unexpectedly, Qi Lianying pulled down her gauze dress, revealing her smooth shoulder. She leaned to the side, and a purplish palm print appeared on the back of her shoulder in front of Lu Ping. Seeing that Lu Ping didn't understand, Qi Lianying explained, "This is the soul-chasing palm of the Crystal Palace. The practitioner who is hit by this palm will not only be seriously injured, but may also die. Even if he doesn't die, this palm also contains a trace of the divine sense of the person who made the palm. As long as the person who made the palm doesn't die, you can follow this divine sense to find the person who was hit. If I don't kill him, what awaits me is the endless pursuit of the Crystal Palace. Soul chasing, even if I don't die, I won't be able to escape." Lu Ping coughed and said, I see. Well, the wind is strong. Be careful not to catch a cold. Put on your clothes first. This reason? Very strong. Qi Lianying looked at Lu Ping's embarrassed look and suddenly giggled. Lu Ping felt a little embarrassed, so he closed his eyes and stopped talking. Chapter 256. 2 days later, on the boundless East Sea, an island that looked like a continent suddenly appeared. Qianyuan Island, the largest island in the northern part of the East Sea. At the center of Qianyuan Island was the rolling Qianyuan Mountain, and a magnificent city surrounded the entire Qianyuan Mountain. This was Qianyuan City, a huge mountain city, the real center of the Northern Alliance. Lu Ping and Qi Lianying parted ways before entering the city. Both of them had important things to do, so naturally, they would not enter the city together. Before Qi Lianying left, she chuckled strangely at Lu Ping, then suddenly tore off a piece of skin from her face, changing it into a mature and charming face. This level of disguise was far superior to the white and red masks that Lu Ping had used before. Lu Ping actually did not notice it at all before. According to Hong Ying, Qi Lianying had been dominating the 27 outer islands for 7 years, and even negotiated with the core forging enlightened masters of the 3 alliances many times before finally successfully occupying 5 islands. In other words, this woman had worn a mask on her face for 7 years without anyone noticing. The ingenuity of her disguise and her forbearance really made Lu Ping admire her. The entire Qianyuan city was protected by a huge formation, and the large spirit vein on Qianyuan Island was the source of the formation's spiritual power. Legend had it that this large spirit vein had been carefully cultivated by generations of masters of the Northern Alliance, and had reached the limit of a large spirit vein. It was only 1 step away from being promoted to a giant spirit vein. Qianyuan City prohibited cultivators from flying in the city, not even core forging enlightened masters, unless you were Fa Xiang Laozu. Lu Ping casually paid the city entrance tax of 10 spirit stones, then picked a cultivator who looked smart from the tour guides at the city gate, tipped him a mid-grade spirit stone, and asked him to take him to various shops selling spirit herbs in Qianyuan City. In Lu Ping's mind, as one of the largest cities in the North Sea, there would definitely be an abundance of cultivation resources in the city. Naturally, there would be all kinds of treasures. However, at the beginning, Lu Ping was quite satisfied with the purchase of spirit herbs. But after just a few shops, Lu Ping felt that something was wrong. He stopped the blood-refining realm tour guide and asked, "Do you know why this shop only sells 500-year-old spirit herbs, but I've never seen a shop selling 1,000-year-old spirit herbs?" Looking at the ignorant tour guide in front of him, Lu Ping knew that this was not something a blood-refining realm cultivator like him should know. So, he waved his hand and sent the minor repairs cultivator away. Just then, Lu Ping suddenly felt as if he was being watched. This time, they looked at the 2 cultivators from the Dark Mountain Gang with pity. Although the Dark Mountain Gang was an underground power in the streets near Qianyuan City, and it was said that there were 3 core forging experts in the gang, it wasn't to the extent that they didn't have any respect for alchemists, right? Although the 2 cultivators from the Dark Mountain Gang didn't know the weight of Lu Ping's words, their instincts told them that something was wrong. Did they mess up the Hall Master's task? But there was no reason for the gang to give in to a late blood condensation cultivator. The Listening Hut was a wonderful place for low-level cultivators in Qianyuan City. The hut was actually a tea house, but the cultivator who ran the tea house had several cultivators who were proficient in music. They often played the zither and flute in the hut. These tunes had special effects on cultivators' temperament, solidifying their realm, calming their mind, and even healing injuries. Therefore, many blood condensation cultivators in Qianyuan City were willing to come here to drink tea and listen to the zither. This became a good place for low-level cultivators in Qianyuan City to relax while they cultivated. Occasionally, core forging enlightened masters who loved music would come here to drink tea and listen to the zither. This made the Listening Hut even more famous. Lu Ping casually sent the tour guide, minor repairs, away and walked into the tea house. Waves of ethereal zither music suddenly floated over and lingered in Lu Ping's ears. Although Lu Ping didn't know anything about music, the magic power in his body seemed to flow faster with the zither music. His divine sense also shook, as if his spirit, chi, and spirit were adjusted to the best state with the zither music. A boy came forward and asked, "May I ask if you're Senior Luju? There are 2 sisters who want to see you. Please follow me." Chapter 257. Lu Ping followed the boy to a quiet room on the 2nd floor. The quiet room was quite spacious, and the interior decoration was simple yet elegant. It could be seen that the cultivator who ran this small building was indeed an elegant person. There was a screen in the middle of the quiet room, and 2 beauties walked out from behind it. They were Li Xiuzhu and Chu Ting, whom Lu Ping had met on Sanja Island. Lu Ping looked up at the 7 spirits embroidered with a pong, a dragon, a luan, a tortoise, a tiger, a cicada, and an ape. He chuckled and said, "It's been 2 years, and you 2 are even more elegant than before." Li Xiuzhu nodded to Lu Ping, and Chu Ting smiled and said, "Brother Lu is too kind." In the past 2 years, Brother Lu's cultivation has also become more profound. If I'm not wrong, Brother Lu is now preparing to form his gold core. Lu Ping often used the Mirage Gauze robe and the Spirit Concealment art to conceal his cultivation base in front of others. It often gave off an unfathomable feeling. Even during the battle with Hong Shikue couldn't clearly see through Lu Ping's cultivation base with his core forging realm divine sense. But now, Chu Ting was able to see through Lu Ping's cultivation base. Lu Ping took a deep look at Chu Ting and said with a smile, "Miss Chu has a very sharp vision. It's just that I can't compare to you 2. I'm still not confident in forming my gold core. I'm ashamed." Chu Ting continued to smile and said, "Brother Lu is really modest. If even Brother Lu doesn't have much confidence in forming his gold core, then there really aren't many cultivators in the East Sea who can form their gold core." Lu Ping smiled without saying anything. After sitting down with the 2 girls, he picked up the upper-rank spiritual tea on the table and took a sip. He closed his eyes and carefully tasted it. He said, "Good tea, upper-rank spiritual tea, spiritual spring water bred in a large spiritual vein, teapot and teacup made of upper-rank spiritual material, golden ebony." The owner of this listening small building is really generous. If we want to drink top-rank spiritual tea, I wonder if this tea set should also be replaced with top-rank spiritual material. After Lu Ping finished speaking, he put down the teacup in his hand. However, he didn't look at Chu Ting. Instead, he looked at Li Xiuzhu, who was beside Chu Ting. When Li Xiuzhu saw Lu Ping asking her, she replied, "Of course." His tone was firm as if he was talking about his own family matters. "Oh." Lu Ping looked at Li Xiuzhu and smiled. Chu Ting lowered her head and picked up the golden ebony cup in front of her. She took a sip and said, "Brother Lu is quick-witted. There is no need to test the 2 of us. This listening small building is indeed our property." Li Xiuzhu naturally knew that he had fallen into Lu Ping's trap and couldn't help but glare at him. Lu Ping smiled nonchalantly. Chu Ting only said "we" and not Li clan, which naturally meant that the Li clan was only a peripheral force of this mysterious force. Hence, he said, "Since Miss Chu has such a powerful backer, why would you need my help?" Chu Ting's expression turned cold as she looked at Lu Ping. Chu Ting pondered for a moment and seemed to have made a decision. She said, "Isn't Brother Lu planning to do something in the parish secret realm?" Lu Ping's eyelids twitched and he said, "Young Lady Chu is well informed. I wonder what other secrets young Lady Chu knows about this one?" Chu Ting didn't mind Lu Ping's unfriendly tone at all. She continued, "One of the medium spirit stone veins on the nameless island hollowed out a third of the vein. I presume it was Brother Lu's doing as well?" Lu Ping was still calm. Chu Ting said again, "Although Yi Buki was planted with the life and death spell by Brother Lu, he was once saved by our pavilion. He is also a peripheral member of our pavilion. In order to repay our kindness, he risked his life to tell me some things about Brother Lu. Of course, the matter of Brother Lu entering the spiritual mine on the Nameless Island is just my guess. I'm telling you frankly not because I think Yibuki has been abandoned, but because I sincerely hope that Brother Lu can give Yibuki and his brothers a chance to live. Brother Lu is smart enough to notice something from our next series of actions. Rather than being discovered by Brother Lu, Ibuki and his brothers will be killed, and there will be grudges between our pavilion and them. It's better for me to tell you the truth now and ask for Brother Lu's mercy." Lu Ping caressed the teacup in his hand and suddenly said, "The Six Directions battle formation is indeed not an exquisite battle formation that independent cultivators like them can obtain." Chu Ting smiled and said, "Brother Lu, you can see the general trend from a small clue. I admire you." Lu Ping sipped his tea and didn't say anything. Chu Ting knew that Lu Ping was weighing the pros and cons, so she didn't say anything. After a while, Lu Ping suddenly asked, "Is Immortal Jin Li also the work of your pavilion?" Chu Ting was also puzzled. "It's not our pavilion's doing. It's strange. Immortal Jin Li's origin is quite mysterious, as if he suddenly jumped out of a secret realm. There was no such person among the East Sea Demon tribe before. With the cultivation of the second layer of the core forging realm, he consecutively defeated several core forging realm experts and even escaped from the hands of a middle core forging realm master. In the end, he was seriously injured by Wang Hua and Kuren Shan of the Crystal Palace, and his whereabouts are unknown. Several powers in the middle layer of the fallen mystery realm have been disturbed by this Taoist Master Yao. It is no wonder that Brother Lu suspects that this person is the handiwork of our pavilion." The last place that Taoist Master Jin Li was seen was on the Nameless Island where the mid-sized spirit mine was located. Soon after that, news of the Crystal Palace discovering a spirit mine spread. Our pavilion suspects that Immortal Jin Li is looking for a place to recuperate. I heard that the East Sea Demon tribe already knows about this and is investigating this Immortal Jin Li. Seeing that Chu Ting didn't seem to be lying, Lu Ping knew that Ibuki hadn't told Chu Ting everything. He smiled and said, "Although I don't know your background, as far as I know, you don't seem to have a good impression of the Crystal Palace. Aren't you afraid that I'll sell you out after I leave this small building? You should know that the Crystal Palace is a giant in the East Sea, or even the largest sect in the Outer Seas. It can compete with the major cultivation sects and holy lands of the Middle Earth as an equal. It is said that it has inherited the legacy of one of the seventh patriarch, Jiao Daoren." Chu Ting and Li Xiuzhu looked at each other and smiled. Then, another charming laugh came from behind the screen. "Of course it's because of me. Hong Shikue died in our hands. You don't seem to have a good impression of the Crystal Palace, so they are naturally relieved." Looking at the person who came out from behind the screen, Lu Ping smiled helplessly and said, "Maybe it's because of me. Hong Shikue died in our hands. You don't seem to have a good impression of the Crystal Palace, so they are naturally very relieved." Qi Lianying was overjoyed. She laughed and said, "Could it be a hero saving the beauty? I knew that you were interested in this old lady. Otherwise, why would you risk offending Water Crystal Palace to help this old lady kill that damned bastard? If you are interested in me, I will reluctantly give you a chance." Lu Ping couldn't stand Qi Lianying calling him old lady. She was clearly a mature and charming woman, but she still acted like an old man and had no qualms about talking to others. Chu Ting hurriedly introduced, "Big Sister Ing is a close friend of Xiao Zhu and I. The two of us didn't think that Brother Lu and Big Sister Ing would have such a chance encounter. That's why we decided to tell Brother Lu the truth at the last minute, hoping to further our cooperation." Lu Ping glanced at the screen again without anyone noticing and said, "I didn't expect Island Master Qi Lian to be a member of your pavilion. I guess the leak of the spiritual mine on the Nameless Island is also your pavilion's doing?" Qi Lianying smiled proudly and said, "That idiot from the Wang family is usually so arrogant and domineering. Ever since he saw me when we were collecting offerings, he immediately gave me half of his soul. I used some tricks, and he obediently gave me such a great gift. It's just that the property that I've worked so hard to accumulate has been ruined by the Crystal Palace." Chu Ting could tell from Qi Lianying's tone that Qi Lianying was a very competitive person. Qi Lianying had always hoped that Chu Ting could build up her own business and prove her capability. Qi Lianying had been managing the 27 islands for 7 years without asking for help from Qi Lianying. Qi Lianying had finally taken over 5 islands and gathered nearly 100 blood condensation realm cultivators under her. But in order to help Chu Ting, Qi Lianying had abandoned all of this. Chu Ting felt guilty and said, "Sister Ing, go back to the pavilion with me." Sister Ing has mastered the secret technique and is only one step away from the gold core realm. Even if you go back to the pavilion, no one will dare to have any bad opinions about you. If that person comes again, I will be the first to deal with him." Qi Lianying giggled and said, "Don't worry. If I can earn this property once, I can earn it a second time. And it will be even bigger than the first time." Lu Ping coughed and said, "Let's talk about the Elixir Association first. Although I don't know much about the force behind Miss Chu, I can see the big picture from a narrow angle. Those who can plot against the Crystal Palace are naturally not a bunch of useless people. With the resources of the pavilion, it shouldn't be difficult for you to train a few alchemists like Miss Chu. Why do you insist that I represent the Li family?" As soon as Lu Ping and Chu Ting met, they had a battle of words. This time, they finally got to the main topic. Chu Ting smiled faintly and said, "Brother Lu, please know that the force I'm in is called the boudoir. Brother Lu, please don't laugh at me. There are indeed many female cultivators in our force. I hope you won't mention the boudoir in front of others, lest you harm yourself and others." Lu Ping chuckled. He was indeed a little surprised and nodded to show that he understood. Chu Ting continued, "Although there are 2 cultivators in the pavilion whose alchemy skills are not below my sister's, they either have important tasks or have advanced to the core forging realm like my sister and lost the qualification to participate in the Elixir Association. Moreover, the Li family is only a small force in the Northern Alliance. If there are alchemy masters appearing one after another, and all of them are female, it will inevitably arouse suspicion. Therefore, I can only ask Brother Lu to help." Lu Ping frowned and said, "Is this Elixir Association very important?" Chu Ting considered her words and said, "This Elixir Association is related to the distribution of interests of the Li family in the Northern Alliance, so it is very important. This time, the Zhang family, the Wang family, and the Li family will get a share of the medium-sized spiritual mine on the unnamed island. How much each of the 3 families will get will depend on the performance of the alchemists of the 3 families in this Elixir Association." It seemed that the Li family, as a chess piece of the boudoir in the Northern Alliance, was obviously very important. The boudoir was to expand the Li family's right to speak in the Northern Alliance. Moreover, Chu Ting kept using the word Li family, which was obviously a hint. It seemed that the boudoir in the Li family had some arrangements. Chapter 258. Seeing that Lu Ping was silent, Chu Ting took out a jade slip from the storage bracelet on her wrist and said, "This is the secret skill of spirit sense transformation. The reason why I can refine elixirs that are half a step to the core forging realm is because of the power of this secret skill. This secret skill is also very useful for cultivators to break through to the core forging realm. Of course, even if Brother Lu doesn't want to participate in this elixir gathering, I will give it to you as a thank you for saving Sister Ing and killing Hong Shikuwei. Also, I am afraid that the alliance between the 3 families will change. I am also willing to help Brother Lu replace the Wang family's position." Lu Ping raised his eyebrows and looked at Chu Ting. Chu Ting smiled helplessly and said, "Brother Lu, please forgive me for not saying too much. My original plan was to support Sister Ing, but the matter of the spiritual mine on the Nameless Island happened. Now Sister Ing is wanted by the Crystal Palace, so I can only hope that Brother Lu can replace the Wang family's position. Of course, I also hope that Brother Lu can advance to the core forging realm as soon as possible after the elixir gathering, so that you can occupy the Wang family's position." Qi Lianying said angrily, "Well, you wicked girl. You even want to plot against your mother and sister. I was wondering why you tried so hard to get me to occupy the island and become the king. It turns out that this is your plan." Her words were still fierce, but there was a trace of emotion in them. Lu Ping played with the jade slip in his hand and said with a smile, "In that case, let's go and meet the alchemy masters of the elixir gathering." After leaving the quiet room, Lu Ping happened to see Hong Ying and Wu Yin walking towards Lu Ping under the guidance of a young boy. Lu Ping was about to greet them, but he saw Hong Ying and Wu Yin were staring at something behind Lu Ping. Lu Ping turned around and saw Qi Lianying walking behind him. Lu Ping said with a smile, "Why are you following me?" Qi Lianying giggled and said, "Marry me? You saved my life, but I can't repay you with anything, so I can only marry you. Is this a common story among mortals? Lu Ping helplessly slapped his head and said, I have a fiancé. Don't even think about it. Qi Lianying was overjoyed. 3 wives and 4 concubines. Don't you like it? I am such a natural beauty, but it's a pity that I'm 1 step behind your fiancé. Let's just be a co-wife. When the time comes, you can marry a few more concubines, and I'll teach them all to be obedient. Lu Ping really couldn't understand the thoughts of this old lady. Beside him, Red Eagle and Wu Yin were simply dumbfounded. Qi Lianying was still happily thinking, Tell me, what type do you like? Mature, charming, graceful, jealous, tolerant, virtuous, shrewd, cheerful, melancholic, understanding, or something else that I haven't thought of? As long as you want it, I can satisfy you. Lu Ping was shocked and quickly waved his hand. All right, there's no need for that, it's enough. Red Eagle and Wu Yin were now crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. In the quiet room, after Qi Lianying left with Lu Ping, another charming middle-aged lady came out from behind the screen. Chu Ting and Li Xiuzhu quickly stood up and said, Master. The middle-aged lady waved her hand and said, Tinger, you've arranged everything well. All these years, I've almost handed over all my matters to you. You've improved very quickly. Chu Ting smiled and said, It's all because of Master's nurturing and trust. Now that Master's cultivation has reached the peak of the core forging stage, breaking through the Dharma stage and becoming the Dharma Laozu is the most important thing. As for other matters, as long as it's within my ability, I'll do my best. The middle-aged lady smiled and turned to Li Xiuzhu. Xiuzhu, you're an honest child. You're not good at the open and secret fights in the boudoir. I've always taken you in as a registered disciple because I'm afraid that once you become a core member of the pavilion, you'll be plotted against by others. Fortunately, you've always been diligent in your cultivation. Now that you've become a core forging enlightened master, I think some people won't plot against you anymore. Now, I'll take you in as my personal disciple, my 6th disciple. When Li Xiuzhu heard this, he was stunned. Chu Ting quickly reminded him. 2 streams of tears suddenly flowed down Li Xiuzhu's eyes. He hurriedly bowed to the middle-aged lady to acknowledge him as his master. The middle-aged lady helped Li Xiuzhu up from the ground and smiled. According to the rules of my sect, when a disciple acknowledges a master, they must personally prepare a gift. Master and my fellow apprentices must also prepare a gift for you. Today, we'll settle this matter. After the pill gathering is over, we'll proceed with the ceremony. At that time, we'll invite others to attend the ceremony. That Lu Ju is not bad. Invite him to attend the ceremony. Seeing that the middle-aged lady had finished speaking, Chu Ting hesitantly asked, Master, about Sister Ying's matter, what do you think? The middle-aged lady's face revealed a complicated expression. She then said, If she wants to go, then let her go. In any case, no one knows her true identity. Chu Ting was still worried and said, Sister Ying's soul was searched and she lost her memories. Master, you once said that once Sister Ying enters the core forging stage and her divine sense turns into divine sense, she might recover some of her fragmented memories. At that time, the middle-aged lady murmured, if she recovers, then so be it. It's good that she recovers. Chu Ting and Li Xiuzhu bade farewell and left, leaving only the middle-aged lady standing in the quiet room. She murmured to herself, I can't compete with you, but I definitely won't lose to you. Dharma manifestation stage. That person is still an amazing talent. We can't compare to him, but this time, I'll at least surpass you. At this moment, Qi Lianying was like a fox that had stolen a fish. She complacently followed behind the gloomy Lu Ping. Hong Ying and Wu Yin looked at each other strangely. They both silently followed behind Qi Lianying. This time, following Lu Ping to Qinyuan City was definitely worth it. At least they discovered 2 secrets about this mysterious young master. The first was that the young master saved the beauty, and the beauty promised to marry him. The second was that the young master had a fiancé. Lu Ping did not deliberately hide these 2 things from Hong Ying and Wu Yin. A feeling of being a trusted subordinate arose spontaneously. What was a trusted subordinate? That was, under the master's trust, they knew many of the master's secrets and would resolutely keep them to themselves. At this moment, a cultivator in his 50s, wearing a linen robe, walked into the listening hut. When he saw Lu Ping, he smiled and said, "Little brother, I'm the old man, the leader of the Black Mountain Gang, Xiao Jingyan. Can you invite little brother to the quiet room for a cup of tea?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "That's fine. I don't dare to refuse an elder's gift. The zither in this hut is really good. I can drink and listen at the same time." Hong Ying and Wu Yin were shocked. The old man in front of them had an unfathomable cultivation base that was as vast as the sea. This was definitely not a cultivation base of an early core forging realm enlightened master. However, Lu Ping was talking and laughing with the old man instead of trembling in fear like they had imagined. This was simply unbelievable to them. Qi Lianying's face was indifferent. He continued to walk behind Lu Ping. Wu Yin and Hong Ying looked at each other and hid the shock in their eyes. They pulled themselves together and followed Lu Ping to a quiet room. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.